Comic Timing is a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network.
Welcome to episode 193 of Comic Timing, a comics podcast devoted to the average comic book fan from the average comic book fan. Join in as Brent Cassina, a rotating panel of guests, and myself, Ian Levesine, discuss whatever comes to mind, time after time, here on Comic Timing. We're a little bit more rotating than usual this week, as Donovan Morgan Grant and returning guest Bob Bratal come and tell us all about their San Diego Comic-Con experience. We also touch on the James Gunn controversy and a little bit of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Here now, Comic Timing. Hey there, folks. My name's Ian Levesine, and welcome to episode 193 of Comic Timing. Brent, you here? Hey, Brent.
Hey, I'm here.
Yo. How's stuff? How's life?
Life's good.
Good to hear it. Donovan's back, too. Hey, Donovan, what's going on, man?
Fuck Batman.
Oh, good. We get that right off the start here. That's great, man. Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that travesty later on in this episode. Oh, Lordy. Here's hoping that was the worst of the best and that the rest of that show is good because, I do not have good start on that one. And Mr. Bob Bratal joining us for the first time, and I don't even know how long, but welcome back to the show, Bob.
Hey, guys, far too long.
Most definitely. You still podcast occasionally with Rick, right?
It's been a really long time. Rick went back to school or something, and, we used to do it. We do it in kind of fits and starts, It's like at some point, he'll start doing it, and we'll do it for 3 or 4 months in a row, and then I won't hear from him for 6 to 9 months. I'm in that 6 to 9 month dry spell of hearing the dulcet, charming tones of Mr. Rick Gordon.
He randomly posted to my wall on Facebook about like 2 weeks ago, like Ian, I made your favorite wheat cakes, so at least I know he's okay.
Yeah, I message him, like text message and stuff,
yeah.
But it's just been too long since I talked to him.
Well, if there's one person who knows about having to fit life and podcasting into the same bubble, it is I. So I 100% understand that. But we're back here for the first time in a couple of weeks, and somewhat timely as we're recording this, as San Diego Comic-Con is said and done, and that just happened about 2 days ago. We're recording this on a Tuesday. It finished up on Sunday. And I want to talk about your guys' joint experiences because Donovan and Bob, you got the chance to actually be there while Brent and I just watched the trailers and read the news. So, Bob, since, you haven't been on the show in the longest, let me know what your experience was like and how this compares to previous years, because I know you're usually at San Diego.
My 29th year.
Wow. Oh my God! So
Oh gosh, really?
Next year's the milestone.
Yeah, that's right. It's the next year is the 50th Comic-Con, and it'll be my 30th, given that I get a badge, which is never a guarantee, right?
Yeah, definitely. But how'd it go?
I have a weirdly atypical experience at Comic-Con for a number of reasons. One of them is I'm one of the really bizarre people who go to Comic-Con for comic books.
What?
Yeah, what? There are those. And people, it's, every year around Comic-Con time, I have to I always get online and I'm fighting off people who say, well, there are no comics at Comic-Con. And it's like, well, if you don't think there's comics at Comic-Con, you probably haven't been there. Or if you've been there, you haven't really looked too hard for them, because the problem with being on the outside of Comic-Con looking in is it's just comics are not what the media really posts about.
Right.
They show everyone in a costume, they show all the Hollywood stuff, they show the actors, and because that's what people, general public, is interested in. They know the movies, they know the TV shows, they like seeing people in costumes. I don't know about you, Donovan, but whenever, for 29 years, it's like every time I go, if somebody hears you're going to Comic-Con, they're like, well, what are you dressing up as? And my answer is me. I don't dress up as it. But, you see it on the news, and it's always just all these people in costumes that they corral up I mean, Donovan, you were there. What would you have a gut feel percentage of people wearing a costume at Comic-Con?
Well, I've made sure to recognize on Wednesday it's kind of a low volume. It's like, it's kind of just because I always get there on Wednesday preview night.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really get going until Thursday. For the whole con, I would average out. I would say at least 40% cosplay.
Think that high? I really don't think it's that high. I mean,
Really?
when you're walking down an aisle, like 4 out of the 10 people around you are in costumes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 30%.
I think it's more like 10%.
Okay.
Really?
If I threw in people wearing T-shirts or maybe just a funny hat or something, maybe it would get up around 30 or 40%. But I mean, I guess if I had it in comic book T-shirts, it'd be closer to 80%. But
yeah.
It doesn't seem like that many people are actually wearing like full-on cosplay costumes.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, I haven't been since 2009. But I know that when I was there, that was about the ratio that I would put it at as well. I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort to put a costume together, and even if the media likes to paint it as that's the experience. It's like, hey, everybody's there in their costumes. Everybody brings 3 different costumes and they're wearing them 3 different days or 4 different days. In the reality, it's a lot more just people their favorite silly nerd T-shirt.
Right. You get a lot of that. You get hats. You get someone might have like maybe their backpack looks like Cap Shield,
mm-hmm.
or these various things that you buy.
Sure.
Or maybe someone's in a like really subtle one, like they'll be holding some Doctor Who sonic screwdriver or something in their hand, and they're wearing I guess it's almost cosplay if they're wearing like a doctor suit or something, but
some crap like that.
Well, most people when I look around me, at least when I'm around, it's just they don't seem to be dressed up. But
right.
For me, the panels is the heart and soul of this con, because there are literally hundreds of different panel programming. And when you get to the panels, most people think of Hall H and, some of the big Marvel and DC ones where it's like, oh, they show the lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's people camping overnight to get in and all this. Well, that's true if you want to go see Chris Hemsworth, the size of a tiny little action figure, 100 yards away when you're at the back of the 6,000 person hall or,
right.
Like that. But I go to comic book related panels. I went to 21 panels this year.
Oh,
and
wow.
They were pretty much all about comic book stuff. And most of those, I don't think I really stood. I stood in like maybe 2 lines because the panel before mine was full.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. I mean, I saw Mike Mignola. I saw Simon Bisley, Joe Quesada, and Jimmy Palmiotti. That was one of the more crowded panels. But, just lots of different things with comic book creators in them. And I have a great time when I'm there. I like seeing the different people who make the comics, and a little more so than the Hollywood stuff, because, when I get home from Comic-Con, just like everyone else, I sat down and I watched the Walking Dead panel on YouTube because they recorded it and it was up on YouTube.
Sure.
And I didn't have to stand in a line to see the Walking Dead panel with all those guys. And, it's just kind of my choice. But I think different people can have different experiences there. I'm sure, Donovan, your con and mine were probably very different from one another's, based on like just the number of lines we stood in and, what different kind of things we did. And everyone who goes there can have, their own kind of custom experience.
Yeah, totally. The reason I managed to get out there is because I get there as press. I mainly go as an outlet for the Batman universe, but I also do work for Earth2.net. And we actually get, interviews with the writers and stuff, or when we can. This year was actually pretty tough. And as press, I can get some cool things. I was actually able to go to the Doctor Who panel in Hall H and be in the press cage.
Oh, nice.
And I did the same thing for Dragon Ball Super. That's the bulk of a lot of my experience. I've been doing this since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
But even though, it is kind of like a work vacation because there's a lot of stuff we do have to kind of cover. And in the next couple of days, I need to kind of, write down and kind of, dictate in written form what I did. I do go there for like I love the cosplay stuff. I love kind of seeing the deals, which I kind of tend to do on Sunday. Seeing like if I'm going there with some other press to interview a Batman thing, I kind of want to also see, I make sure I get into the Steven Universe stuff.
Right.
So it is kind of like, maximum, interest explosion, because the only other conventions I've ever been to have been like Middle Tennessee Anime Con, like twice. And I've only been there like very, very briefly. So the majority of my kind of convention kind of fan familiarity is with San Diego Comic-Con, which I know does have a very reputation of kind of being shallow and more corporate in Hollywood or whatever. And that might be true. But I mean, it's been nothing but positive every year, even, with its ups and downs. So mine tends to be a little bit more kind of goal oriented and kind of a little bit more business minded, but at the same time it's also I kind of just nerd out and make sure I can kind of flirt with every one of my interests when it comes to anime, comics,
right.
Cartoons, all that kind of stuff.
Well, since you brought up anime, and I mean this is a little bit of a segue, but / rant, but we'll get back to San Diego. It was announced about a week and a half ago that my hometown New York Comic Con, is going to be trying to yet again run Anime Fest, which was their big anime convention that Reed Exhibitions was running out of the Javits for years. They then merged it back into New York Comic Con, and then basically it just disappeared into like an anime programming block more than anything else. It's been announced that they're going to wind up having Anime Fest be its own thing the same weekend as New York Comic Con. You have to pay. You have to pay extra in order to get in, and the venue is like a 20-minute bus ride from the Javits. It's at Pier 94, which Big Apple Con was at a couple of times, and they somehow think this is a good idea. I'm not quite sure that they realize, or maybe they do, and they're hoping for the best here, just how much crossover there is between anime fandom and comic fandom, which is why people, I think, like to have it all in one package or just have them be entirely separate. But having it be the exact same weekend as the con is going to be essentially splitting loyalty, and I'm not thrilled about it. I personally do not have to worry about it because I have the professional pass this year, which means that I get automatic entry, but it's still a ginormous pain in the ass to be like, okay, do I want to do comic stuff today or do I want to do anime stuff today? Like, you literally have to make that choice. And for the regular fan, you got to make the choice of, like, do I want to pay the extra $25 to go to that particular con along with what I already paid for?
That sounds fantastic. How do I get Mega Convention to do that?
Oh, God.
It's an interesting dilemma, Ian, because I can see both sides of that argument. The people who complain at San Diego Comic-Con about it being trying to, be too much and all things to all people, that's the same kind of thing. I've heard people say, well, they should split it and have it be, Comic Book Con and then take the Hollywood stuff and put it over here someplace else. But a lot of people that I know, I mean, if they like all these different kind of things, and most people that I know actually do go for that kind of thing where they're not just going for pure comic book panels. They like to see, I'm going to go see some comic book panels, but then I'm also going to see, some panels with other stuff. And that's the big thing. And if they split it, then people would have to kind of make that choice, especially putting the venues so far apart seems really not that great.
For certain cities, this would make sense. For New York, which in general has very spread out, convention space, it doesn't. There's only so much you can work with, and I think they would be much better off having it just be another weekend and running it that way. Plus, this also feels like a response to the fact that a new convention popped up about a year ago called Anime NYC, which is run out of the Javits, and did really well in its first year, and is going to be, I think, about a month after New York Comic Con. And it feels like they're trying to sort of steal the thunder, which reminds me of the time when Big Apple Comic Con tried to schedule itself the same weekend as New York Comic Con. It's just it feels like history repeating itself in some ways. Like they're trying to bite each other's tails off. It's an interesting situation, but either way, I think I've decided that I'm gonna back the Anime NYC trail on that and just do New York Comic Con, and maybe I'll walk over to there to experience that at least a little bit. But it still feels like they're ghettoizing it a little bit. And Brent, I know you're perfectly okay with that because you're not much of an anime guy.
No, I'm not much at all.
What were your highlights news wise for the weekend, Brent? Anything like stick out to you immediately?
I thought the Aquaman trailer was way better than it probably deserved to be.
Mm-hmm.
Comic book news, I didn't see much. I saw like Batman's getting the trunks back, which is like, okay, duh. I'm sure
Hooray.
Bob is happy. I always thought it was a little weird
I don't really
that nobody
care one way or another on what Batman's costume looks like.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right. What
thing,
about Superman?
Costume wise though, on the Aquaman trailer, I thought it was okay, but given that my wife is a redhead and I've got like Mira's hair looked like just a really cheap cosplay wig to me in that trailer.
It's definitely a wig.
I mean, it's just like, shocking scarlet red. And it's just like, yeah, the reason that they made hair that color in like 1960 is because they didn't have the capability to make red hair look like an actual redhead's hair. It's just like... Yeah. It felt like look scarlet.
It felt like the Medusa wig all over again from Inhumans.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Ooh, that's cold.
Yeah, Shazam really worked for me out of all of them, mainly for just how freaking fun it felt. It definitely felt like it was capturing the feel and personality of the character. Aquaman was good, but it just felt like another superhero movie to me. Like nothing really stood out as like amazing. Shazam feels like it's going to actually be a little bit of a different personality than what we've gotten recently, whether it be Marvel or DC.
I'll be curious how Shazam plays with the general public, because I showed those trailers to my wife, who is totally not a comic book person.
Yeah.
And she thought the Shazam one looked stupid and goofy.
Interesting. Okay.
He was like, why is he dancing around like that? Why is he acting that way?
Because he's 14.
Yeah, but you understand that. I guess you're supposed to, but Captain Marvel was not 13 going on 30 20 years ago.
Right.
It wasn't like goofy little kid Billy Batson in Captain Marvel's body. It was he became Captain Marvel. That was kind of like when he'd get the wisdom of Solomon and these other things kind of prevented him from just acting like a goofy little kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's kind of fun to play off that, Tom Hanks in Big, Jennifer Garner in 13 going on 30. I'm probably dating myself because all those movies are way before your guys' time too.
But, I've seen both. Love me some Jennifer Garner.
Yep. And that's kind of like a fun thing, I guess. But it just like when a civilian sees that and he's kind of like prancing around a little bit, it's like she was unimpressed. I'll just say it that way.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. That much I'm sure. Yeah. You went to a ton of panels, Bob. What were some of the standouts for you?
Oh, wow. I went to a lot of really good panels. You remember Comics Buyer's Guide?
Yeah.
Ian?
Mm-hmm.
So Maggie, the first panel I went to was Maggie Thompson and Mark Evanier and R.C. Harvey and various people talking about Comics Buyer's Guide and reminiscing about that.
Oh, wow.
That was great. I went to Joe Jusko's Spotlight panel.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I went to one that was run by the guys from 2000 AD, but it was a treasury of British comics, and it was always something I didn't know that much about. But it was really interesting because they, in Britain, they publish all these comics. And when 2000 AD bought out the library of Fleetway, I guess they were saying, they ended up with bound weeklies of comics that they had published, and he had to make bookshelves to put them on. He said he had 90 linear meters of shelves to hold the comics And he said pretty much all of them have not been seen since the week they were first published.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, man, that is amazing. And subsequently, I went down to their booth and bought some of these, British comics that I had never seen before. And they're actually pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I went to the 20th anniversary of Marvel Knights. Jimmy and Joe were talking about that. And if you remember that from 1998.
Oh, sure.
That really was what rescued Marvel from the, leather jacket and pouch era and kind of put them on the road to, kind of getting the credibility back that they have today. And it's also the area that they're mining for a lot of these Netflix series and even like the Black Panther movie.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we would. It would be a very different landscape today had Marvel Knights not happened. Had they not changed course over at Marvel. I mean, for one thing, I honestly don't even really know if there would have even been an Iron Man movie had that happened. Yeah.
It was amazing. There were others. I mean, I always go to every year that Mark Evanier runs something called, he used to do, it was a Golden Age panel. And then a lot of those creators all kind of passed away. And then he had a Silver Age panel. Time marches on. What he has now is called That 70s panel, kind of a take on That 70s show. Uh-huh. And this year he had Marv Wolfman and Wendy Peeney and Rick Hoberg, Steve Leialoha, and Elliot S. Magan on it. Mm-hmm. And, they just kind of reminisce about, crazy stuff and tell stories about, the 70s in comics.
Nice.
Went to spotlights on Mike Mignola and Jeff Lemire, Simon Bisley, or Bisley, not exactly sure. There was a Steve Ditko tribute panel.
Mm-hmm. Damn, I was looking for that. I just knew there had to be something about that.
It basically he passed away too close to the con for it for them to totally change the schedule. IDW repurposed the Artists Edition panel. They spent like the first 5 minutes of that giving a couple of Artist Edition announcements, and then they switched over to a slideshow with like about hundreds and hundreds of pieces of Ditko art on it, and then just people talking about Paul Levitz was there and Steve Leialoha and some others, and they were just talking about Steve Ditko.
Nice.
And just things like that. There was a Jack Kirby spotlight on his art and his influence, and they had some artists on the panel that were talking about how Jack Kirby influenced their art. So that was a little different take on that. I went to one panel that was really cool because I always try to go to some of these that are just things that I don't have that much exposure to. Mm-hmm. So that was like that British comic one, and I was really fascinated by it. I went to one called Outlaw Art: The Trials of Underground Comics, and they had these guys who were, they made like the first issue of Zap Comics, and it was like, and other comics that I don't know if you're like a PG show that I probably can't even say the names of.
But go nuts, honestly.
So Joyce Farmer, she's like this 80-year-old woman, and she was the co-founder of Tits and Clits.
Cool.
Hearing this 80-year-old woman, just, we made this magazine called Tits and Clits, and talking about it, and it's like, whoa, it's like, it's just, but it's funny though because for young people, you're going to get old if you're lucky,
right?
And we can't forget that these people who are 80 were our age at one point, and they weren't always 80, and they were fighting. These guys, they were fighting the good fight back in the early 70s. They're talking about getting harassed by local police and the FBI for trying to sell their underground comics and intellectual freedom and all this kind of stuff. And it was fascinating to hear these guys, this kind of context. You just don't get that a lot of places. These kind of, I went to a panel that was criminally under attended. It was called Artists Who Write.
Okay.
There was maybe about 200 people in the room. Let me tell you who was on this panel. And you can tell me how many people should have been there. Dave Gibbons.
Oh, my God.
Gibbons, Watchman, right? Raphael Albuquerque, Wendy Peeney, Joel Jones, and Frank Miller.
Oh, my God.
I was sitting in like
murderer's
the
row.
front row. You know, there was like hardly anybody in there because it wasn't called, hey, come see Frank Miller. It was called Artists Who Write. And they were talking about, you know, both working with other creators and then, you know, how that compares to like working solo and doing kind of your own thing.
Those are my favorite panels at cons, Bob. The ones that either slip through the cracks or are ones that are just more creator focused than anything else, because you get some of the best stories out of that.
Yeah, you know, and there's another panel I do every year at con called Cover Story, the Art of the Cover. It's another one that Mark Evanier runs. And what they do is they get 4 or 5 artists up there. This year they had William Stout, Veronica Fish, Matt Taylor, Joel Jones, and Joe Jusko.
Okay.
And what they do is they pick like 4 or 5 covers. Mark usually has some friend of his who's not really that into comics, just kind of do a web search and pick like 4 or 5 just random covers by that artist. And then he has them sit in the front row of the audience and he projects up these covers and has them talk about what were their design decisions, you know, how do they like how the cover came out? How do they like how, you know, maybe they put like some logo or, you know, cover copy or something obscuring part of the art, you know, things like that. And it's just fascinating to hear, you know, like Joel Jones is like, man, I hate this cover. I really didn't know what I was doing when I did this one. And, you know, things like that. And they're kind of critiquing their own work and talking about each other's work. It's a fascinating panel to watch.
Sure.
They critiquing Frank Miller's modern artwork?
Yeah, Frank wasn't on that particular panel, but you know they're talking about their own personal things. But it was kind of really cool. Went to the Len Wein Memorial Pro Fan Trivia Challenge. Paul Levitz like blew away most other people, but you know some of the questions were like about stuff that happened when he was the publisher of DC Comics. So if he didn't know the answer, it was going to be a problem.
I know there was also a tribute to Harlan Ellison at the con.
There was, and criminally, it was at the exact same time as the Len Wein panel, and they were on opposite ends of the convention center. And this was Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, at the end of the 4-day con, you've been to San Diego before, right? You know how big that convention center is?
Oh, it's huge.
So the cover story, Art of the Cover, was way down on the Hall H side of the convention center. And that ended, and the next panel was either Len Wein or Harlan Ellison. The Len Wein one was like 2 rooms down on the H side, and the Harlan Ellison one was all the way on the other side of the convention center, and my knees were... You know, it's like, okay, then I'm going to go to the Len Wein one.
Oh, please, yeah. No, you need a teleporter in order to get to certain panels at the right time at that convention center. It is very, very large. And then there's the ones that are off site at the hotels, and so much happening in a weekend. It's hard to do every single thing.
But that's the thing about that con, and it gives such a rich choice. You know, so many choices that people can make. And, you know, people have to make those choices, but just the fact that at any given point in time, I could pick between 4 or 5 comic book panels, 1 or 2 or 3 Hollywood kind of panels, anime of some sort or another, panels about being a creator or about the creative process, panels, you know, fan-oriented panels about topics like cosplay or, you know, all other kinds of things about the history of comics and all these different things. It's just like, it's amazing the breadth and depth of different topics that they manage to get out there for people. And then that is totally aside from, you go down on the floor and pretty much every major comic book publisher, pretty much all the mid-tier comic book publishers, and then probably about another 40 or 50 small press and indie guys and creators, and then just like hundreds and hundreds of other creators down there, plus all the, they probably had about 50 or 60 comic book dealers, people selling toys, toy companies, video game companies, original art dealers. Boy, there's just so many choices to make there. You're busy all day, every day, and every minute you're making choices on what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely.
And how you want to spend your time.
Absolutely. And Donovan, did you make it to any comic panels at all, or were you mainly just there for your press stuff?
I made it to the Batman family panel.
Okay.
Where they announced that Batman was getting his classic costume back, which I genuinely like, because I don't like his puzzle pajamas looking suit from the New 52. I just found it very distracting. So I'm all for the Jim Lee suit.
I like the more recent
the Capullo one.
It's a decent look, but honestly, I kind of need something I kind of need to be directed to his crotch in some way.
Wow.
Quite frankly.
Don't.
I do. I personally do. I need there to be underwear. Otherwise, it's just. It looks like he's wearing pajamas. I like the purple cape, but and I like.
What
are
you wearing? Are you wearing pants?
Would you like to
You
know?
wearing shorts? I'm just saying. I don't. I know. I get the Circus Strongman stuff with Superman and Batman. I understand the history of it. I just never understood the need to. The Superman. The argument I think from Jamal, I read on Facebook one time, was it needs to break up the blue. I was like, isn't that what the belt is for? I don't know.
It depends on the belt, though. Superman specifically, his New 52 costume, there was nothing to break it up whatsoever. When they redesigned it and they brought that second Superman back, that looked.
I like the Superman Reborn one.
Yes,
I thought that was a really strong costume.
So did I, and I would have been perfectly okay with them keeping that. But nostalgia's nostalgia. I like the more recent. Batman outfit, not the original New 52 one, but the actual Rebirth outfit. That worked really well for me, and I'd be perfectly okay with that. But if there's one thing we know about Batman, is that his costume changes once every blue moon. Whenever the hell they feel like changing it, they do. Same with Iron Man, same with all the different characters that have had so many. Robin, specifically Tim Drake. Tim Drake's costume feels like it changes every other 3 days now, and they're not set on a look or a style, and I understand why they're trying to go a little bit more traditional here for now, but who knows how long that's going to last?
They said that the reason why he was going back, and they said this is not the first time he's wearing this, he's going back to an older costume because. You guys read Batman 50, right?
I know enough about it. I haven't read the whole thing.
Well, he's in his feelings and wants to kind of not be reminded of what he was wearing during the recent stuff. So he's he wants to be reminded of good times. So he went. Hush was pretty fun. Let me wear that costume.
I want to be alone.
Yeah. Which I'm.
Hush was pretty fun when he thought Jason Todd could come back to haunt him.
Every time Batman swings by that rooftop, he's just gonna be bursting into tears now.
It's better than talking about his dead parents every 8 seconds. That's better than that, right?
Well, I said that the reaction to the costume resurgence was rather kind of muted. I wanted to hoop and holler because I'm that kind of guy, but it wasn't as rapturous as I remember when they announced Superman getting the underpants back. That was a gigantic deal, and I was shocked when they did that.
I think people care more about Superman's costume for some reason than Batman's. I guess because he's a tech billionaire.
Superman's costume as much.
That's true.
Yeah.
They made a bunch of changes back around the death of Superman, but Superman's costume has been fairly consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Batman has had so many interpretations because he has just so many more different, mini series and Elseworld series and different cartoon series and movies and all of these things. And the costume seems to be different in almost every one of them.
Yeah.
He's not Iron Man. There's an ethos to the costume, and I think that I kind of get the sense that DC was just ashamed of all the underwear jokes from people who didn't read comics, so they changed it. So I'm just glad that they're not seeming to care about that anymore.
Yeah.
Personally. But that was really it. Like in terms of comic book panels, I went to like the Supergirl '84 Blu-ray panel. I actually watched that movie for the first time this like a couple days before the panel.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty bad.
Oh, it's awful. It is so bad.
It's bad. It really. I mean, I wasn't hating on it, but I was surprised how bad it was.
It's just about as I'd say on the bad spectrum. It is just about as bad as Superman 4. It is an era where they did not put really any money into the productions, and it shows.
Well, even the writing is like she dithers around and wastes time when her planet is dying for like an hour. Like I don't know, but
did they touch on the fact that they changed? She started wearing that headband in the comics because the movie people told them that she was going to be wearing a headband in the movie, and then when the movie came out, she wasn't even wearing a damn headband.
Helen Slater said that like. I don't know if she had a veto on this. I think that was like her first film, but she said that she personally did not like the headband costume.
Okay.
And they just went to the more classic look, and and she was destroyed by the Anti-Monitor in that costume. But yeah. But besides that, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think. In terms of panels, I tried and failed to get in the Spider-Man panel. I tried again. I tried and failed to get into like, the X-Men animated series panel.
Okay.
So there were a lot of like whiffs, but yeah, I think this year was I mainly recall the Doctor Who one, the DB Super one, the Batman Family one. I went to a writing panel, and I think the rest was press stuff, which I could talk about in a little later.
Yeah, definitely.
Bet you didn't have trouble getting into the writing panel.
Yeah, that was on Sunday with like the Winter Twins, who I'm not really familiar with.
Oh, okay, that's.
Yeah, it was more like kind of novel writing than like comic book writing.
Okay, yeah.
So
that's an interesting thing with the con. Like of the 150,000 people there, I'd say I was talking about this with people when we had we usually have a dinner on Sunday night, bunch of us, Saturday night rather, and we were curious about how many people at Comic-Con actually were comic fans, and I think we settled in somewhere around 40 to 50% of people there, and then of that 40 to 50% of those people who are comic fans, the ones who are primarily superhero comic fans is probably at least 70% of that. So that knocks you down even more. And so as a result, and then even among everybody who's there, most people have, split interests. So, they're there and they like comics and they like superhero comics. Maybe they also read Image comics. They'll read some of the IDW stuff, but then they also like Doctor Who. They also like, the different movies. So, they have to always make these choices on, they want to go see some of these panels, some of those. But the Marvel and DC panels are always pretty crowded. Yeah. And, if you want to go see a panel that's about an individual creator, it's pretty easy to walk into those panels. There's not any lines.
Right.
Or if there's anything that's an even slightly obscure topic, there's really no problem getting into those. But, if it's Spider-Man or X-Men, boy, you better get there an hour before and get in line. Or are you familiar with the term panel camping?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the other thing. It's just like what I notice is the only time like some obscure panel that I go to is like really crowded is when the next panel is, got like, I went to see one panel that was a spotlight on Scott Hampton. You familiar with who he is?
No, actually, it doesn't ring a bell.
He's like an artist. He does painted art. He's actually one who's actually painting the American God series right now from Dark Horse over layouts by P. Craig Russell, adapting the Neil Gaiman novel.
Got it.
Fabulous artist. I went to his panel last year, and there were maybe 15 people in the room. And what he did was he just said, oh, there's not that many people here. And he just like pulled out pages of his fully painted original art and just like started handing them around the audience for us to look at.
Oh, wow.
And his girlfriend was there, and she is kind of, just keeping an eye on, nobody got up and bolted for the door or anything. This year, the room was much, much fuller. And he had them just kind of up on the stage, and you could walk up and look at it. But it turned out Jim Lee was in the room in the panel right after his. So the room was totally packed. But they were all there just panel camping for Jim Lee.
Of course.
But very interesting.
Well, you can't do that for Hall H anymore, right? Because I know that they have the wristband set up for that. Although I think once you're in, you can stay in. If I remember. Yeah,
correctly. You can stay in. I think that's pretty much the thing with Hall H. People who do Hall H, they just get in as early in the day as they can, and they just spend the whole day in there.
Yeah.
They bring a bag of food, and there's bathrooms. You don't have to leave Hall H. There's bathrooms that you can get to without having to leave the hall, and they're just in there the whole day.
I still remember back in 2007, before Hall H was a thing, really, like just basically walking in. I think it was during the which one was it at that point? I think it was whatever. We walked in for another panel that was going on, and then immediately afterwards was the Marvel panel, and I got to see the original footage for Iron Man. And it completely blew my mind at the time. And again, like, this was before there was really like that much camping for Hall H. Literally by 2009, you had to, be online a day before in order to get in. But when I was there, that wasn't the case.
I used to go to Hall H all the time back in the old days. You could just, if there was a panel, I want to see, something about, the Mystery Men movie, which was I was going there when that was, if you remember that movie.
Oh, yeah.
I just walked into Hall H, and there's Ben Stiller sitting up on the stage, and, some of these other people, and it's like, it was fun.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, around 2008, 2009 era, it just got crazy.
Thanks, Twilight.
Yeah, that was about
ruin our lives.
that was pretty much it. It's like another reason to not like Twilight, as if you needed another reason.
Ugh. So, but before we go into some like general San Diego Comic-Con news, and we'll also go into maybe some of the stuff that you guys bought at the con. One of the big things that happened the weekend of San Diego Comic-Con was not actually at San Diego Comic-Con, and that was James Gunn getting fired from the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 movie due to tweets that he made 10 years ago being drudged up by a faction that basically makes it their job to do this now.
It's the Pizzagate guy, right?
It was indeed the Pizzagate guy. And he basically, made this a big stink, and Disney responded with, okay, we're taking you off the project. That's it. You're no longer needed. And response has been rather heated on both sides. I know that Dave Bautista has come out in defense of James Gunn, as has Patton Oswalt and a bunch of other comedians. And I'd love to get your guys' take on this in general, because it's a very heated scenario. And I understand why Disney did it, but at the same time, I feel like they went too far in this particular instance. It's one thing when someone is making these statements while they're in your employ. It's another when they were random tweets from 10 years ago, back in a time when the guy was basically a shock comedian. I'd love to specifically start with you, Brent, and how you feel on this whole thing, because I have a feeling I know where you land.
Well, you posted about it. I think I first saw it on Facebook, and I carefully worded my response because it is your Facebook profile.
Yeah.
And I have gotten reamed by your Well, I'll call them hyper-liberal New York City hipster friends. I don't know what you call them. Maybe just friends. That's fine.
Sometimes
Call them family.
Yeah, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're family. Sometimes they're not from New York. Sometimes, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
But they are all
I'll just
hyper liberals. He's not disputing that point.
Some of them are. Some of them are. Some of them aren't. Either way, they all just like piling on Brent. But anyway, continue.
That's true. As a more usually typically moderate, common sense, level-headed. At least I like to think myself that way.
Yeah.
I think it's bullshit. The firing is bullshit. Should he have tweeted that stuff? No. Now everybody knows in the age of Me Too that you can't say anything at all that is controversial or whatever because it's going to come back to bite you. And this is what happened to James Gunn. And I think the Me Too movement, with all the great strides it has done and, fleshing out disgusting dirtbags like Harvey Weinstein, has also done damage to other people who might not deserve it as much. And James Gunn is certainly a victim of this, even though it wasn't like sexual harassment per se, but it's still because of the super reactive state of mind that Hollywood is in right now and social media in general. Usually, in the justice system, we have this innocent until proven guilty. But on social media right now, you're guilty until absolutely never, ever. You can't even be unproven innocent. Even when you're proven innocent, you're still guilty. And the shame culture right now on social media is just so disgusting on both sides that people are quick to judge and quick to shame and quick to ruin people's lives over something that they have no interest in, control in, no direct gain or reaction from. Like, James Gunn's tweets don't, react to you. You don't work with him. You don't work for him, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But everybody wants to pile on and dogpile on everybody so often now that stuff just gets slipped through the cracks. And James Gunn is one of those guys that's, I think, has been, is a victim of this culture, this shame culture that we live in right now on both sides.
I want to point out before Donovan, I asked for your points here. An article came out on MovieWeb 2 hours before recording this that Rianne Johnson deleted 20,000 tweets following James Gunn's firing. Perhaps as a
smart guy.
Yeah, perhaps as a precautionary measure.
How do people find that out?
It's actually pretty easy to look at, for instance, web cache. Because tweets never really disappear. And there is also a marker on your Twitter as to how many tweets you've made. If memory serves, that is one of the things that shows up on your dashboard. So I guess somebody must have just been on his profile and then reloaded, and then suddenly that's 20,000 tweets later. I will also say that James Gunn's a smart guy. The fact that he never deleted these things in 10 years, sure, you could say it slipped his mind or whatever, but he honestly should have been maybe a little bit more aware of the type of comedian that he used to be and how this stuff could easily bite himself in the ass. He's a rich guy, and he's a smart guy, and thinking of what's posted publicly might have been a smart idea for him.
Let's face it, though. Here, we're in uncharted waters right now with James Gunn.
Yeah,
it's not sexual harassment. He didn't touch anybody. He didn't fake grope anybody like Al Franken.
Yes,
which I think was still a bit too far, even as he was a comedian, not a senator at the time. But whatever. He was, and he has an IMDb page of all the trashy films he's made before.
Oh, sure.
Super is is I think a great film. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Rainn Wilson, Ellen Page, R-rated superhero movie. He made that before Guardians. Slither, I think, is a pretty good movie. But he made some other films before then that I've never seen, but I know that I have no interest in seeing because I think they're trauma films, and I don't know that I'm interested in that kind of schlock. I guess you would categorize it as. Yeah. So just like he has a storied film history of, this type of film versus that type of film versus Guardians, which is an A-level superhero film, he's moved up. And then I would say that your tweets and stuff are the same way. I mean, you go back and look at my Facebook profile from college, my stuff is not just as stupid. I didn't think myself a comedian, but I'm just complaining about statics class and structures and stuff I was doing at the time.
Right.
And I definitely understand if you're a comedian 10 years ago trying to think that Twitter was the new hotness, you would be trying to try out what, all the stuff that's going on. And I think comedians are still trying to do that today.
Sure.
And it's unfortunate that people will be punished for the freedom of speech they exercised 5-10 years ago in the past.
Right.
Because of the culture change, especially when you're working for an employer and they say, "Oh, I didn't like something you said 10 years ago." No. That's not how that may be how culture works. You can deem something unacceptable or rude or crude as the culture shifts, but I don't think your employment should be terminated based on something that existed before you entered an employment agreement with a company.
Yeah.
That is insane. And if James Gunn may not be suing Disney, but he should certainly sue the guy that went after him for libel for calling him a pedophile.
Definitely. I would agree with that.
That would just be fruitless because he would never get anything. You'd spend a lot of money and it would go nowhere.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is an entertainer can have their career ruined, or even like a regular person can have their career ruined for doing stuff that's not as bad as something that, for instance, a sitting president has done.
Yep.
And what kind of a weird double standard world do we live in?
It is those who would continue to support said sitting president that are very much the driving factors of a lot of this stuff. And mind you,
exactly.
I mean, I really hate saying, but it's happening on both sides. Like, yeah, I know that there have been hyper liberals who have also been utilizing similar attacks to try to go after, say like Milo and stuff like that. But for the most part, he fucking deserved it.
But it kind of
trying to defend that guy.
Against the people on the other side of the house. These guys have kind of like figured out that like, wow, these liberal people really care about this stuff.
Yeah. Let
me just dig up all kinds of dirt on people who speak out against Trump.
It's weaponizing outrage.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these guys, these people who take this outrage and get these people fired don't even realize how they're being manipulated by the same people who are supporting the the corporate, kind of Republican, ultra conservative agenda and some of these other kind of more unsavory, sides of the house. They're just like seeing how they can just really put the knife in and twist it on these liberals who you just dangle this, piece of bait in front of them and they chase off after it and, just go feeding frenzy on one of their own. Yeah. Because you can certainly say anything you want, but James Gunn, I mean, the guy himself is a liberal guy. I mean, and that's the whole problem is like these people who were, like shock comedians or in these, different parts of the culture. I mean, they tend to be very liberal, advocates of free speech and all this kind of stuff. I mean, you brought up Al Franken. Look at how they told, he was one of the few guys who was standing up intelligently, trying to argue down and keep some of the shenanigans that went on in Congress. They totally took that dude off the playing field with this nonsense. It's crazy.
It really is. And you go back, the fact that like a day after this happened with James Gunn, they then brought up a long since deleted comedy sketch that Dan Harmon made. Mind you,
I saw that too.
Yeah, Harmon's got a bunch of issues, above this, but the fact that they went after him with a deleted comedy sketch about rape, essentially, that he made in 2009, which he almost immediately deleted afterwards, and they tried to dangle that as a carrot, and Adult Swim was like, "Yeah, we don't like the sketch." Oh well, like that's it. Because mind you, they've already invested in 7 seasons of Rick and Morty. Like, they would have to straight up cancel Rick and Morty entirely in order to get Dan Harmon out of it, because they know as well as anybody, look at Community as the perfect example, that if you take the creator out of the show, it's not going to work. And you can then say, oh, well, what about Roseanne? And, well, Roseanne was never really about Roseanne. Roseanne was about the ensemble, and it's going on without her as the ensemble. And I think that
we'll see what it does without her.
Yeah,
I don't think it will do very well.
I'm genuinely curious.
I think the difference, though, is, and taking Roseanne as an example, taking someone to task for something that they do live in the moment now is very different than dredging something up that somebody did at some point in the past.
Yes, absolutely.
That you're, it's like, hell, what's the statute of limitations on grand theft or, all these different kinds. It's like.
But to me, one accusation should not ruin a life make. You know what I mean? One accusation, one thing, because how do you know anything in this world? You got to use the scientific method to verify it. But one guy saying one thing that happened 20, 25 years ago could be true, but could also be just as not true.
Right.
And I don't think that we should be firing all of our creative people or anybody else in a matter of seconds.
But that's the thing is, if an actual case is built with legitimate evidence and multiple witnesses,
yes,
then that's one thing. But that's not how this works.
Yeah, Hardwick especially.
There was no big case built. There was no actual legal charges filed. There was no nothing.
Hardwick is technically on suspension, by the way.
Well,
pending investigation. So that's
he also was not hosting the panels he hosted at Comic-Con.
He was not at Doctor Who. I can tell you that.
And honestly,
he may come back. Right now, he's doing the wise thing, which is just kind of keeping his head down.
Right.
Until it kind of blows over.
Rightfully
but
so.
I think that this is legitimately getting into a whole other topic, because this isn't about Me Too in terms of James Gunn. It's kind of similar in terms of how celebrities are treated in terms of bad behavior, but it's not Me Too. And these are sort of instances where it's absolutely a talking point. But honestly, I think if the thing with James Gunn is that he had a hit job done on him.
Yes.
I did not hear about this stuff until the weekend, in terms of the stuff that he did before, all those tweets. And those were horrible tweets. It wasn't just, those are dumb jokes. Those were disgusting tweets. And I would, if I knew those tweets before I knew who he was, I didn't know who he was until the Guardians movies, I wouldn't like him.
Yeah. But
I had learned that he had since apologized. And I believe those tweets were brought to light when he was first announced to be hired on the Guardians movie. So this is already a done deal.
Yeah.
All writers went after him because he was talking about how dumb Donald Trump is, which, get in line. But they went after him. They said, he made these tweets, so he must be a pedophile. FBI, go after him. And because of that, Disney said, well, he's radioactive now. We don't want him. That's what's going on. It's more of a case.
And I know, but it's definitely politics, but you cannot. This would not have happened without the Me Too movement. And like I said before, I'm not disparaging it. I'm disparaging the culture of shaming people and rush to judgment that it created, and that now everybody is subject to, whether you're in entertainment or not. Just human resources, work-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody got accused of something by a female, and because that actually turned out not to be the case. I have firsthand knowledge of stuff that's not the case, but because she was the first one to file a complaint, he filed another complaint past her. Luckily, he had backed some stuff up, but it doesn't get wiped away, even though it was proven wrong because she was the first to file a complaint.
Right.
You know what I mean?
See, and here's what my main issue is with any and all of this is that the Me Too movement is important to get the scumbags out. And
yes,
I think that one of the most important driving factors of the Me Too movement is that it had journalism behind it. Specifically going to, say, Bill Cosby as a perfect example. There were journalists that investigated this for months and months and months, got witnesses after witnesses, got people who were subjected to his advances, so on and so forth. Kevin Spacey as well. 15 different people have come forward with allegations against Kevin Spacey, stemming all over the place, from groping to, potential rape, so on and so forth. Does not look good. But then you go to things like Aziz Ansari having a bad date with having a bad date with somebody.
Yeah, that was bullshit.
And that, basically making him have to step back in his career for a little bit. He's rebounding now, and frankly, I think that's mainly blown over. Then there's also scenarios with George Takei. George Takei, the person who came forward, has at this point essentially retracted on those statements and reneged, because it was one person. And you can usually tell, even with these, for the most part, when there's no further journalists coming in with, we found this person, we found this person, we found this person. Usually, you can tell that there's something, that there's not a full case, if that makes sense. It's very hard to tell because, yes, sometimes there is just one person and that's it. And one person can be all it takes to take a scumbag out. But if you do not have journalists backing your story, and I'm talking real journalists, trust me, Donovan, I understand, you work in press and all that jazz. I'm talking New York Times, I'm talking USA Today, I'm talking Washington Post, I'm talking, Daily News, any real news outlets. I'm bound to trust those first when it comes to Me Too allegations specifically.
Well, my thing is that, I kind of see this more along the lines of, I really I don't know. It's like Henry Cavill or whatever a couple weeks ago, or even Scarlett Johansson, in the sense that this is I think we're all kind of reacting emotionally towards the sense of what's the difference between somebody who's made a mistake and we give them contrition for it,
yes,
or just a problematic fave?
Absolutely.
No woman has talked about James Gunn, so no. I don't want to disrespect the conversation by talking about something else that James Gunn.
What the hell did Henry Cavill do?
He actually talked about the Me Too thing and said it's hard to get a date without a woman accusing you of being a rapist or whatever, and he got dragged on Twitter because of that, because it was seen as ill-informed. And I talked about that on Q No Way, because I was frustrated that if somebody in the public eye does something that we don't like as progressives, their Hollywood license, so to speak, should not be revoked. That was my argument.
Right.
But I do think that I don't know. I agree that weaponized outrage and even PC culture to an extent shouldn't be just a cudgel to I don't know, virtue signal or whatever. But it's a tightrope. There are specific cases, and I think with this instance, it's actually much more cut and dry than a larger conversation on, well, what about this person? What about this person and Dan Harmon? I think, honestly, with this, it's the reason is that alt-righters didn't their supreme leader getting attacked, and so they went after James Gunn.
Yeah.
That's it. And
right.
Disney needs to recognize that to an extreme extent, Nazis are going after their employees. They need to be aware of what to do, especially when they most likely knew about these tweets in the first place. I think that's where the main conversation is, not so much whether we believe in these other celebrities at this point in time or whichever. It's
that these tweets got dredged up again. I think that's 100% the reason why Disney got rid of them, is that they had this made a tiny stink when Guardians first came out and people weren't happy with it then, and then it came up again. And
is this a tiny stink again? Isn't this a tiny stink again? This is 2,000 people that are retweeting this one guy's tweets.
Yes, it is.
2,000 people out of a population of 300 million is less than 2% of the population.
And let's think.
Why is it fireable?
It's
science.
Only because Disney deemed it so, and that's it. All it takes is one executive to deem it so.
It's interesting because what Henry Cavill said, he didn't say it in the most elegant way, and he said it probably in a really poor venue. Mm-hmm. But if you kind of dig down at what he said, there's a germ of
there's a logic to it.
Idea to the point he was making was that as a high-profile actor, he has to be extremely careful because anything he does can be misconstrued, and he can be accused of stuff, and there's very little desire for anybody to prove anything. That if somebody decides to say that Henry Cavill did something, they're going to immediately believe that person,
right.
And his career is going to be in the toilet before, whether he did it or not, before any of the
Aziz Ansari is a perfect example.
Comes to light, right?
Yeah.
But the thing about that is that like at that the people there's a logical truth behind that, and there's absolutely an instance of the whole guilty before proven innocent thing. But the way he said it, he wasn't right, because at that point you're just like, for him, just all you need to care about is respecting women, and you have nothing to worry about. That was essentially what the answer was to that.
The bottom line is, I don't disagree with you. I'm saying he said it in a really poor way, and saying it to like Vanity Fair is really not the place to have that kind of conversation anyway.
If you have that with Playboy, you'll be in much better shape.
But the actual thought or idea behind it is fairly true, and realistically, if you want to take James Gunn as a parallel, right? You say, well, all he has to do is not be a douchebag to women and he's okay. Well, to some extent, maybe, but
that's not parallel. That's not parallel. He was going after Donald Trump.
Okay, fine. Let's tell you. I don't want to say parallel. It's just the point is that just the fact of, you can't say that just be nice to women and this will never happen to you, because he could be completely nice, completely a gentleman, do everything right. And if somebody got a perceived wrong from him and decided they wanted to do a hatchet job on them, they could make life very uncomfortable for him before anybody bothered to check the facts and determine whether or not any accusation that was made is actually true or not. Yeah. That's the actual point.
Yeah, I think in the end with James Gunn in particular, many people put it this way, and I'm pretty much going to put it the same way. Like, you can say at the same time this was a hatchet job and this was bullshit, and that he never should have tweeted those things in the first place. Those are 100% things that you can say, and I think both of them. I think that they were stupid, pointless jokes that weren't even really jokes, that he honestly should have never freaking made 10 years ago, and now it bit him in the ass because it gave him ammunition to go after him here. As of now, he is still fired. Dave Bautista is in his corner. Chris Pratt's tweeting.
All the Guardians.
Yeah,
unclear.
No, Chris Pratt tweeted a Bible quote, basically.
No, I saw what he tweeted, but that doesn't say it. It just says quick, slow to judgment, quick to listen, slow to speak.
Right.
Like that's not coming out and saying yay or nay on it.
No, it's
either.
not. It's not.
Did you see what Bobcat Goldthwait?
Yes, I did.
I did. Yeah. That was a great point.
Yeah.
He had a great point.
Yep. Yeah, Goldthwait basically said, like, I freaking parachuted into a Nirvana concert naked, and, earlier on in my life, but, I would never do that now because for one thing, I'm older and I've grown and I'm not that person anymore, and people should be allowed to grow as human beings and not be held 100% accountable for shit they did 10 to 15 years ago. Especially when they didn't really
Disney
hurt.
and their racist cartoons.
Come on, please tell me about it. And when this first came out, I legitimately was thinking, wait, did they mean James Woods? That's what I was thinking. Like when I heard James Gunn, I'm like, wait, you don't mean James Woods? Like, because hell, he was in a Hercules movie for Disney back in the day, and that guy's a giant asshole. Turns out they were talking about Gunn, and I'll be very curious to see what happens with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 from here, and whether or not he's at least hired on as a consultant. I also would not be surprised, and this is complete rumor mongering on my end that can very well turn out being hogwash, but I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up on set and doesn't officially get a credit after all this.
I don't want to just be rehired again.
No, I wouldn't have. If I were James Gunn and I got shamed like this, ruined, I wouldn't accept anything less than a full apology and a full rehire.
Yeah.
And control of his characters. I mean, he doesn't own the characters, but he basically is the creator of those versions of those characters. Star-Lord was not that way before James Gunn came along.
Yeah.
Bendis turned Star-Lord into that way after James Gunn came along, but like, you know, Gamora was not a romantic love interest before he came along. Drax still is not the same in the comics as he is in the movie. So like, he's basically the creator of those versions of the characters.
Yeah.
That's like, to me, that's his not property, but his intellectual ideas, his brain waves, his thought patterns, like all that is, you know, embedded in that. The whole arc of Rocket Raccoon, as has been pointed out online, this is not my idea, I'm taking it from someone else, is basically the arc of James Gunn. Like, he's an asshole in the very beginning, and he learns by the end of the second movie that it's okay to change.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do, people, is make sure it's still okay to change, because change is good.
Yeah.
If you're changing for the better, change is good.
Right.
And forgiveness is an option. Compassion is an option. And instead of jumping to shaming people, whether you're on the left, the right, the middle, whatever, should first think of what the compassionate choice is and how you might want to be treated. I'm not making this a religious thing, but just a golden rule thing, if you really wanted to break it down. How would you want to be treated if somebody accused you of something first?
Well, I think I agree with you that change is good, and therefore I'm going to change the topic. We are going to move on to some comic news at this point. I mean, we basically exhausted the
It's a hot topic.
It is. It's a very hot topic. I'm glad we touched on it. And I think
hot takes.
Yes, with hot takes, very much so. So much so that I'm sizzling and I'm burning inside. We move on. Some of the big stories that came out of Comic-Con this weekend. Number one, a pilot script has been written for Judge Dredd Mega City 1. This has been in hot discussion for a while now, and it's now essentially in pre-production. IM Global Television is going to produce the series, and it's basically looking for a home at this point. New series is described as a drama focusing on a team of street judges, law enforcement officers who act in a dystopian future as judge, jury, and executioner of criminals. Series is set in the grim 22nd century, yada, yada, yada. Yes, we all know what Judge Dredd is. So here's the question. Is Judge Dredd going to be in this, or is this just going to be a team of judges?
Sounds like a team. This doesn't really sound that interesting. I like the Dredd movie, the first one. I've seen the Sylvester Stallone one, and, you know, or no, I don't think I've seen it, actually. I like their Dredd movie, but this to me, like, doesn't sound very interesting. If you watch the Netflix Punisher show...
Not the first one. You're talking about the Carl Urban.
Carl Urban.
Yeah.
The true Dredd movie's great.
Yeah.
But, like, this doesn't sound interesting to me. Like, I thought a TV show about the Punisher would be interesting, and no, I was wrong. 10 of the 13 episodes had no shooting whatsoever, which is what I came to see.
I'm actually enjoying it so far.
Changed his motivation and origin. Did you catch that?
It was awful.
Yeah.
A lot of people loved it, though. I mean,
I know they did, but I'm not. I'm fine with a slow burn. I think it makes sense for certain things. It doesn't make sense for the Punisher. You're there to watch him punish people.
Yeah. Well, they've basically said that if Carl Urban is available at the time that this pilot is going in, that yes, Dredd will be a part of the series and he will be involved. But I I guess we have to still wait and see on that one way or the other. Bob, you interested?
I mean, depending on what they show it on, I'll watch it if I have the I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it. Let's say that, like, if they put it on, like, like this DC channel that you have to pay for, the network, the Star Trek Discovery, I'm not buying, the service to watch Star Trek Discovery. If Star Trek Discovery was on, like a channel that I could just turn on, I would have certainly watched it, but I'm not going to jump through a hoop. I feel the same way about Dredd. If it's somewhere that I can easily access it, sure, I'll try it out, but I'm not going to jump through a hoop for it.
Makes sense, yeah. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it gets picked up by, say, like BBC America or something like that. It seems like it would be a good crossover series. That way it gets to air in both the UK and here if they get the, secure the rights properly. But I know that would be tied to a cable subscription for most people, but it wouldn't surprise me. Donovan?
You know what's funny on the Judge Dredd topic?
Yeah, sure.
Just a panel I was in a lot of panels that, as it turned out, like somebody from 2000 AD was moderating, Mike Mulcher, who's an editor there. Somebody was saying, yeah, people make the mistake of thinking that Judge Dredd's the hero. Right. And that's actually not the point of Judge Dredd. The point of Judge Dredd is this guy is this fascist, guy who's like doing all this stuff. And if you're cheering for Dredd, there's something a little bit wrong.
Well, which is interesting because, yeah, in Dredd, you're definitely cheering for him. Or I wouldn't exactly say cheering, but he's definitely the protagonist.
He's the protagonist.
Yes.
I guess it depends, because I've read a lot of Dredd, and, if he's out fighting the Angel Gang or the Dark Judges, I mean, I'm cheering for Dredd. But when he's like, taking some random dude and putting him in an ISO cube for 20 years for, throwing a gum wrapper in the street or something. That's where it like kind of crosses that line, and you're seeing that other side of Dredd where he's so black and white on it. He could have been written by Ditko.
There's a great comic where like a guy is threatening to commit suicide by jumping off a building, and Dredd's like, "No, citizen, there is no littering."
So what you're saying is
in jail for attempting to commit suicide because that's against the law. Just like, okay,
don't betray the law. Law.
And law.
Would you watch it, Donovan?
Not if it doesn't have Dredd, who's like the primary character. Now, I'm not really actually read the Dredd comics, so like. And as we'll say later, there's so much stuff out there that like this would not be one that would rush out to, at least not without Dredd.
Well, what about Titans? Because as was announced at San Diego Comic-Con, the whole DC Universe streaming service has materialized, and if you pre-order the service before the fall, I believe it's only costing you $74.99 for a year plus an extra 3 months.
That is crap. I hated that. I was like, I'll pre-order it.
Yeah.
And they're like, but you have to give us a whole year's payment of $75.
Yeah.
I did the math. I'm like, so this is $7 a month? What?
Yeah, well, they're Amazon Priming
That's insane.
They're Amazon Priming it because they realize that, and that's what a lot of services do these days, is that they want to take your money up front to ensure that you're with them for a year versus we're just going to get it for a month and watch everything real quickly in a binge and then immediately cancel the service.
Well, that's what I'm going to do.
They're not completely Amazon Priming it because with Amazon Prime, I get to buy any kind of weird shit that I want and have them ship it to me in 2 days for free.
That's true. Yeah.
I can buy light bulbs and they're on my doorstep in 2 days because I have Amazon Prime.
It would be a much better value if they said we're going to throw the entire library of DC Comics on the service from day one.
Yeah.
Not this curated stuff.
I know.
And new releases 4 weeks after. I'd be like, done.
Okay,
done.
Maybe not.
You got me.
Even if it was more than 4 weeks, man. Like even if it was similar to what Marvel Unlimited does with like the 6 weeks after, I'd be perfectly okay with that. And is it 6 weeks or is it more than that? It might even be 2 months, but whatever.
6 months.
No,
I don't have it.
It's like 2 months.
Tell me.
2 or 3 months, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't have to be immediate because I'm so far behind on half my reading anyway that like it wouldn't matter to me if I'm waiting the extra 2 months as long as I was able to read it eventually. But from that first trailer of Titans.
Oh, can I go, please?
You're definitely going first, Donovan. But I gotta take my take first. I have seen fan films with higher production value than it looks like Titans has.
Yes.
And I understand that this was just a trailer and that it could very well look very different when it's done. But I just watched a 15-minute long Nathan Drake fan film starring Nathan Fillion that had more production value than this. I watched the fan film for Power Rangers and it had more production value than this. Batman Dead End, which was made 15 years ago, had more production value than this. It is not a good look. Your thoughts, Donovan?
I actually don't mind like the visual look of it. Or at least I don't think it looks like bad. That's not what struck out to me. So like a few
Batman.
weeks ago, a few weeks ago, there was a press release where people had seen the pilot and said that, like, gosh, there's swearing and violence in this, so that put me off. So I kind of knew what to expect when it dropped.
Yeah.
But I basically felt watching this the same way I felt when I was watching BVS, which is like I just felt embarrassed. I know people who have kind of like vociferously defended this, and they play the same thing. It's like, oh, you don't think that Nightwing ever said that or wanted to say that, and oh, you think Titans can only be for kids or whatever. And it's like, okay, look, like there can be different interpretations of characters. Absolutely, there can be different takes. As you're talking about James Gunn, the Guardians are like not the Guardians of the comics. At least they weren't. But to me, it's about the presentation. I didn't call off and yell at the set photos a few months ago. I didn't, I thought that the Hawk and Dove costumes looked pretty good when they came out. But when your trailer, when your your intentional first impression is like lethal violence and swearing from like
it's
Robin
Red
the Boy Wonder.
TVMA. Red TVMA.
Yeah.
TVMA.
That's not cool. That's not edgy. That just reeks of immaturity.
Yeah. And the trailer itself is so sloppily cut, Donovan. That's another one of my main issues with it. You cannot have your first impression look this so stupidly juvenile.
It's like this. Whenever it comes out, release your inner demons. It's just so like edgelord and like 15-year-old. Like, I mean, it's not an identity. It's an attitude. Actually, my brother said that, and like, I really don't like this. I'm not giving this a time of day. I have better things to do than like waste my time getting mad at DC Comics again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the guy who plays Robin looks decent, but like, who cares? Like, it looks like it sucks. And again, like, while I would prefer Robin to not be a sniveling murderer and not explicate what he probably thinks of Batman, it's not so much that as it is that's what they chose to advertise. This is not your mommy's Titans, and it's just like, you know what, my mommy's Titans are fine, so I'm sure this show has a potential to be good. Riverdale's pretty fucked up, but people seem to like that, but that's not my jam. I don't like it.
I called it Riverdale with superpowers when I first watched the trailer, and like, yes, I do actually like Riverdale. It's a frickin' soap opera, and it's basically teeny bopper Twin Peaks, but it's
with
it's
pedophilia.
Yeah, I know, which was weird, but it's still its own thing.
They walked back on that, yeah.
Yeah. CW's made some interesting choices. Let's just put it that way. But this just doesn't feel right, man. I mean, Bob, did you enjoy what you saw of it? Like, are you interested at all?
Not my cup of tea. But I didn't look at it and have the visceral reaction that you seem to be having. I just kind of look. My take on it when I watched the trailer was, wow, this looks really dark. It's like this is not. I was looking at more at what was being said as opposed to how it was being said. I wasn't like really analyzing it for production value and all that kind of stuff. I just was kind of taking in the content, and it was just. I was looking at some of the choices they had made on like how they were presenting Robin, and Robin seemed interesting. Raven, it was interesting take on Raven as well. I just think that they could have gone in a less dark direction with the whole thing.
Yeah.
And maybe gotten a little better audience uptake. But, I look at it and say, this is not something that is going to cause me to want to give DC a, check for $75.
Fuck that.
Brent, before I get your take on it, the only thing that will get me to pay for this service is
Young Justice.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like this is exactly what the production meeting went for Titans. Like, okay, so guys, we have Teen Titans Go, and that's for kids. and we have Young Justice, and that's basically a Titans show, and that's for like young adults and for
I never thought of it that
adults. Way. Well, but that is sort of the divide, though, when you think about it, though. Like there's a Titans for kids, there's a Titans for young adults, and now they're going Titans for darkness. Like,
so if I were sitting in that room, I would say, okay, then we don't need a third Titans show then.
Exactly.
Because the Titans for Young Justice Titans is basically the great encapsulation of the Titans.
Yes.
Like that's. If you look at all the comics, there's no Dark Titans or anything like that.
Yeah.
The main Titans book has failed to succeed every time it's been launched.
Yeah.
In the 90s, in the 2000s.
What? Jeff Johns Titans was like a big.
No. I'm talking not Teen Titans, just if it's
Titans.
called Titans.
Yeah.
You had the Judd Winnick Titans with Ed Benitez on it that ran for 12 issues.
Abnett's doing
this
a
new
pretty
one
good
now.
job.
I think is the longest one in a long time.
Yeah, well, that's because it's freaking Abnett. Like Abnett's an actual good writer. I mean, mind you, there are other good writers who have written Titans in the past, but this feels like it's the closest to the original origins of the Titans book. Like it's very much just we're the Teen Titans grown up, but we still actually have the values of the original Titans, which has not always been the case with these other books.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not interested in like annoying Raven, 13-year-old annoying girl Raven. Like she's going to be less entertaining than the kid in Iron Man 3, and we all know how love and hate that guy is.
I'm cold.
If you think she's going to be any good, you're guess again.
Do you want to know? Do you want to know how I know that you hate the kid from Iron Man 3, Brent?
Oh, I actually like that kid from Iron Man 3.
Oh, I was going to say because we're connected.
I think my biggest thing is that the effort went into 3 costumes on the show that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Hawk, Dove, and Robin. The costumes look great.
Yeah.
I will say that. But the
split second of Dove that I saw looked awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
They have production promotional stills of Hawk and Dove and Robin that they released before this trailer, and they look great. But they didn't bother to put in any effort in on Beast Boy, and who knows if he's going to actually transform into anything on the show. Don't hold your breath, I would say. If anything, he's going to be a DC version. He's going to be just like Mari on Legends of Tomorrow, who's done really well,
Vixen,
I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Vixen. And what was it? Starfire. I feel bad for this actress.
I don't like Starfire's
honestly.
look in general. I could care less that she's black on the show.
She was apparently chased off on Instagram today. I heard.
Yeah, no. Well, she deleted
sucks.
she deleted her Instagram in general because she's been getting such negative responses from people, and
It just
They put it in the
shows.
zip code for some
I
reason.
think
yeah,
I feel like they were so focused on casting a diverse cast and stuff that they forgot that she's an alien.
yeah.
And I know that you can have like the aliens of different colors and stuff, but
Zoe
I saw
Saldana,
on
dude.
Facebook today.
Zoe Saldana's
Zoe
green.
Saldana.
Like, come on.
But I saw on Facebook today a cosplay. It was a black woman cosplaying Starfire. And I don't know if it was like her skin tone or makeup, but basically her skin tone, if you look at the George Perez drawing, was exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a full wig on with like beautiful, long, flowing orange hair. It was perfect. It was spot on. She was wearing purple. And it was like, wow, that's somebody's time and effort put into thinking about becoming that character. Whereas this one, they're like, hey, let's get a black girl to make the show more diverse. No offense to the actress. I feel bad for her. And let's stick a wig on her and color it orange and call it done.
Yeah,
and put her in a purple jumpsuit.
It's
like,
the costume
that's
more
not,
than
that's
anything
not
else.
love.
Yes. Yeah, the costume and the general design of the character needs to be better. And I hope that once the series comes out, that is the case. But this does not look very good.
You can tell me about it.
Yeah. One thing I was happy to hear about at San Diego Comic-Con for this DC universe is that they're developing a Stargirl series with Jeff Johns and Greg Berlanti behind it, which I knew was going to happen the minute that I heard Jeff Johns was involved with the streaming service, because Stargirl was his creation and one of his favorite characters. It's based on his sister. So that's obviously going to be something that's very near and dear to his heart. But I hope it turns out well. I think that Courtney is the type of character that could very much lend herself quite well to the small screen. I mean, from the appearances that she had in both Smallville and in Legends of Tomorrow, I like the character. But let's see what this take is like, and maybe if they even bring in a little bit of the Starman lexicon in one way or the other, that'd be kind of cool too. But yeah, looks like it could be interesting.
I hope they update her costume a la Black Lightning, as opposed to what they did to her in Smallville and Legends.
Yeah.
And I know the Legends version was in the 40s, so she didn't have much to work with,
right?
Costume-wise. But if they do her, I hope they do it along more along the lines of Supergirl and what the girls are wearing in Black Lightning. Those are great costumes.
Yes, they are. Yeah. Plus, we have Swamp Thing and. I think the Doom Patrol are also in the
Harley Quinn. I was going to say between Young Justice, which is I don't want to say it's a totally dark show, but it's a edgier show. Titans, Swamp Thing, and like an adult Harley Quinn cartoon. This is going to be a pretty mature streaming channel.
Yeah, it is. Enough. Yeah. Also related to DC, the fact that they released that they're finally doing Batman Hush as an animated movie, that has me intrigued. I mean,
I'm done with that. That
sounds
cool.
Definitely. I'm surprised that this didn't happen earlier, quite frankly, because it's one of the more popular arcs. Moving away from DC, there was an announcement that came out as well that we're getting a new Buffy the Vampire Slayer series. That's being executive produced by Joss Whedon, and it will feature a Black Slayer. Anybody have any opinions on this? I'm trepidatious until I see anything out of it, because I feel like we've had reboots of Buffy announced 8 times now, and none of them have actually gotten off the ground outside of the comics. But this seems like it's probably the most fleshed out reboot that I've heard about so far.
I've not watched the original series. I can't speak to my interest in it, which is probably nominal. But rebooting something and gender swapping or race flopping and stuff is fine, but it just sounds like a cash grab.
Yeah,
he's executive producing it. He's not show running it, so his teeth aren't in it. And Is the Charmed reboot going to be any good? I don't know. Probably not. Will this be any good?
I didn't look at the news, Ian. Did they actually call it a reboot?
Yes. From what I'm seeing of it, it is a reboot. Let me see if I can bring up the news here. Yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot in the works, according to CNN Entertainment.
I mean, that's something that the mythology of Buffy is that there are different Slayers.
Right.
So, to me, if they just made it another Slayer who happens to be black, I'd be fine with that.
Right.
But just going and rebooting it to the point saying, oh, this is Buffy Summers and now she's black, I don't see the point of that.
I actually am 100% agree with you, Bob. I mean, because they've had other Slayers. I mean, there was even a Slayer that was introduced on the show that was black.
Yeah.
In, I believe, season 2. Yeah.
Why does it need to be, just kind of redoing ground that we've already covered instead of just building onto the mythology with another character who's black or another character who's whatever? They could do any number of different kinds of Slayers.
Set it in another country. Have Buffy in China.
Well, they did that actually in the comics. You would have these things with past Slayers, from someone who is in another continent or another, 100 years ago. And just you could do all kinds of things with the concept. Just taking and doing a straight reboot just seems like a waste to me.
Yeah.
Can we get a real Witchblade show? If you read Ron Mars's run, which is all on Comixology Unlimited, plug, even though I'm not getting paid, plug. You could definitely do a Buffy-like show with the Witchblade because it's all supernatural stuff, and have different bearers. As your actress gets older and says, "I don't want to do this anymore," all you got to do is introduce her replacement the season before and have the Witchblade transfer, and you're good to go.
Well, I personally would have just liked to have seen them adapt Frey. since Frey is set in the 23rd century, like that would have just been like, Buffy the Next Generation or whatever, and just pick it up from there. I mean, you could even have some of the, older actors involved with the process if you really wanted to, whether it be flashbacks or whether it be, older adaptations of them. Since Willow's a witch, she could easily still be alive in the 23rd century. It's an idea. I mean, I see why they're doing it, but at the same time, it's going to have to be very good in order to this better be a Battlestar Galactica level reboot in order for it to work. Like, it has to be different enough to have me enjoy it, while at the same time still bringing enough to the table for it to make sense. Donovan, you looking forward to it at all?
I think Brent said that he had not seen Buffy, and I'm not seeing it either. I've seen some things here or there. I don't know why. I don't really mind the idea of a reboot for a series I never watched and have any attachment to, but I don't know if it has like an actively different lead. I don't know why that would be a big deal. I mean, I'm surprised that like this has not kind of been part of the conversation, because I know a lot of reactions were after the news about Joss Whedon and his wife came out. People were like, why are we giving him work, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the property,
again, shaming people.
We're not going back to that, Brent. We're moving on.
I'm just saying. People were quick to shame him.
Yeah, I know.
We're gonna have to move on. You don't want.
Donovan makes the perfect point though, and that is that who is the audience that they're going after when you make a drastic change? Is it because you really don't give a shit about the original fans? And the comics are the same way. It's like, well, you're going to get a certain number of hardcore fans that'll kind of stick around, just regardless, because it's this property. But the casual fans who are going to be put off by the reboot, if there are fewer of them than what you think will be the appeal to people who never watched the original or read the original, so that they don't really care and they're just going to be interested in what we're presenting right now.
Well, that's what they're looking for, Bob. I think more than anything else is that, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, Buffy is for teenagers more than anything else. Always has been, always will be. And, obviously, as a fan of the original Buffy, which, mind you, I didn't even watch when it was on. I watched it afterwards on DVD, and I really enjoyed it. I watched Angel as well. But I'm not the demographic they're going after. If they want to go after the demographic, it better damn well be a good series. That's all. They need to justify it by having it be good and bring enough to the table to actually have a new generation be into this series. It's like
that's exactly it.
Yeah,
it's just they need. They need to make it appeal to the core audience of Buffy, which is teenagers today. And if they subsequently happen to get some people who came, who watched the original, then that's a bonus.
Right.
But that's not who they should be even caring about.
Yeah. And
I mean, they rebooted Mad Max, who was the audience for that? But like, reboots could work. Half the time they don't.
Well, that's the thing though, Donovan. It's both a reboot and a sequel. It is a requel. But Mad Max. Mad Max is technically still inside of the Mad Max universe. That's been said a couple times. It's just, it's a very, you could look at it any way you want. Is it another person going by the name Mad Max? Is it the same Max we saw before? It's entirely up to your own interpretation. So go figure.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we got some other bits and pieces that came out from this whole shebang. The Aquaman trailer and the Shazam trailer we mostly went over already. So what else you guys want to touch on? Anything stick out specifically to you guys? Brent, you got anything you want to bring up?
I already did YouTube videos on most of the shit, so they're on the channel.
Yes, but you're on the podcast now, and that's different. What would you like to go further in depth on here with a panel?
I guess if we can talk Batman 50, I want to get
awesome
a reaction on that.
Okay. All right.
Has everyone read Batman 50?
I have. I haven't, but I know what goes on. I don't mind being spoiled.
The original 1945 one, yes.
Well, Ian, it's available if you know where to find it.
I know where to find it. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I'm literally going to be reading it tonight.
All right. Yeah. Well, there's the main. I don't know. I'm so hot and cold on this Tom King run. Like, I read Vision. I bought that in trade, and I really thought that was really strong narrative stuff. But I'm hot and cold on this Tom King run, man. He's too artsy at times, just to be artsy. Mm-hmm. And when I say artsy, I mean big splash pages, double page spreads. And it seems mostly to be when Mikhail Janin is drawing the book, whom I like his art just fine. I like all the artists on this Batman run just fine. But I find him to be a little too sparse in stuff to read in like 40%, 50% of the books of the issues that have come out. Where, I buy a $3.99, $2.99 Batman book or whatever. It takes me 5 minutes to read it because, like this one, number 50, didn't take me 5 minutes to read it, but that's only because he wrote some long-ass letter, and the entire issue basically is just caption boxes over these big pinups and stuff. And I know it's a celebration issue, but I would have been fine if that stuff was in the back, and we got a real reason that Batman and Catwoman didn't get married other than, oh, you can't be Batman and be happy at the same time. I don't know.
Did you see she was manipulated by Holly Robinson, who was working for Bane, and also maybe Thomas Wayne?
No, I think if you really knew somebody and really loved them, you would know that they're capable of different things. I don't know.
My problem with this issue is not Tom King. It was DC's marketing department.
Oh, my God. Oh.
Yeah, he was teary-eyed when he was talking about it, getting spoiled. He was betrayed.
I'm not even talking
whatever
about
he knew ahead of time.
I'm not even talking about them leaking the news to the media outlets several days before the issue hit. I'm talking about when Dan DiDio went on in DC Nation #1 talking about the issue and praising it, and made it very clear in what he wrote that Tom King pitched the entire arc to the DC management 6 months in advance, and they all okayed the story and the ending. And now Tom King, he's like, well, this is the midpoint of my 100-issue, opus on Batman. And, he never intended Batman and Catwoman to get married in this issue. And, maybe it'll be redeemed, and maybe they'll, at the end of his 100-issue run, they'll end up getting married or something. Who knows? But my point is that DC management and marketing were all 100% aware of the fact that this wedding was not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And they marketed the hell out of a wedding.
Because they could.
Put up wedding invitations. Yep. They had 5 or 6 prelude to the wedding, bachelor party, this and that nonsense. And all those things sold in the top 20 and made DC a hell of a lot of money, all on the conceit that there was going to be a wedding. And then they pulled the rug out from under the fans. Yeah. Now, say what you will, about the story, but to me, what this really was, and people who are hardcore Batman fans, it seems like they went one of two directions. I see a lot of hardcore, maybe not even hardcore Batman fans, but hardcore DC fans are like falling on their swords defending DC over this, saying, oh, it's all fine with me. I look at it as, they made like 50 or 75 different variant covers for this thing that, store variants and artist variants. And, when a store gets a custom variant of a cover, they got to buy like 2,000 or 3,000 copies of that. So you can't tell me there's not a very commercial reason to market this thing like this. DC made a hell of a lot of money off of a non-event that they would not have made a dime of that money if they had not been pimping that as a wedding issue.
Yeah.
And I just see it as a bait and switch on their fans, whether a lot of the fans, we're okay with it or not, I just see that as them reaching into the wallets of the fans and extracting a big handful of cash.
I mean, at least
and I don't like that.
I understand that, and it also does not surprise me at all because of exactly what you said, Bob, that like any way that DC is going to make some extra money off of their fans, they will do so. It's going to leave some people burned, especially when shit doesn't go the way that they expected it to in the first place. But for comparison's sake, let's look at the X-Men's wedding issue that came out around the same time.
Like a week ago,
yeah,
or a week before.
Exactly, like the wedding between Kitty and Colossus, which wound up being the wedding between, spoilers, between Rogue and Gambit. At least you got a wedding.
Exactly.
You know?
You got a wedding.
Right. It wasn't the one you were expecting, but you got a wedding. If this had somehow ended with like somehow Barbara and Dick getting married or something like that, or if Kate Kane married her girlfriend or something like that, there probably would have been, I think, less of an angry backlash.
Well, what ifing it? How about if instead of Bane having Holly go and this like incredibly thin saying just the right thing to sort of backdoor convince Catwoman to call off the wedding.
Yeah.
How about if Bane had replaced the priest with someone who's not really a priest, and they're not really married, but there was a wedding ceremony?
Oh God, I am having so many
Green Arrow,
flash.
Black Canary.
Oh God, yeah.
Before Norton jumped on.
Not even that.
Or Raven, or when Dick and Corey try to get married, and Raven murdered the priest before raping Starfire.
No. Hold on. I got you both beat. I got you both beat. Lois and Clark, The Real Adventures of Superman, when Lois was replaced by a freaking doppelganger at the wedding. And the fact that Terry Hatcher was on the floor walking around as Lois Lane, by the way, absolute dynamite. Loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah, that makes me happy whenever I see things like that. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking of when you're talking about that, Bob. Like that's what I'm getting flashbacks to freaking 98 or whatever with that wedding.
Yeah, but it just it rang. And then going to your point about the giant pinups that they filled in half the issue with. Well, Tom King is saying, yeah, I wanted to do this as a tribute to Batman and everything like that, but there's commercial reasons for that too. I personally thought if that was on purpose, and he I don't know how much it was Tom King writing a panel saying, okay, this is going to be by Tim Sale and I want it to be XYZ, or if it was like DC putting out a call to a bunch of random, popular artists and saying, draw some Batman tribute thing. And then they get them all in, and Tom King had a jigsaw puzzle those in to the issue and make a story. It kind of felt like the latter. If it was actually the former and it was actually planned out, then I think there was kind of a poor job done. The other thing I'll say about that is, at least for me, and I know a lot of people who said that they loved that issue and they loved seeing all the pinups. I would have loved seeing all the pinups at the back of the issue, and even maybe just seeing the letter superimposed on them. That's fine, but not seeing it where the way the cadence of the story went of 2 pages of story and then 2 pinup pages with all this text all over it. It really was a disjointed reading feeling for me.
Yeah,
when I was reading it, the flow didn't flow very good for me.
If we can read a Joker issue by Grant Morrison that's all prose, I think you can just print the letter on 2 pages from each person, put them back to back, and then put the pinups in later. Come on.
I like the issue. I didn't have a problem with it. I understand. I think Bob makes a great point about how cynical DC was in juicing this cow, knowing that the fans are going to get juked out of a wedding. But I think that I don't know. I'm 1,000,000% with Brent too. That Tom King is enjoying kind of a Scott Snyder status right now, but I don't think his run is as good as Snyder's was.
Oh, it's not.
I think it is very hot and cold. I think that like he writes bangers like the Elmer Fudd issue I loved, but like, you know, war jokes and riddles I didn't like, and whatever. But I'm kind of mixed. But I personally like the issue, and I wasn't going in there expecting the wedding to be 1,000% safe because it's comic books. I'm personally invested in like why did Bane get Thomas Wayne to like, you know, ruin his own son's wedding? Like that to me is actually very interesting. I think that like the DC stuff and like, you know, how it was marketed and like, you know, kind of the craziness of it is true. But in terms of the issue, I wasn't salty. I actually dug it. And this coming from somebody who's not, you know, kissing King's ass all the time as you guys are. No, I'm kidding. As some of the people might be.
So, all right. So, personally, for me, I mean, I'm still way behind on Batman, but I've been enjoying what I've been reading of King's run, and I feel like as a writer, he jives with my personal flavor a little bit more than Snyder does. I know that I dropped off of Snyder's run as it was happening, just because I lost interest. And I don't know if it was just that Court of Owls was going on as long as it was, but...
I did too.
God, I hated the Court of Owls.
Yeah.
As a concept.
Oh.
Yeah. And it became such a integral part of what he was doing that I just lost interest and I stopped reading it. Like when I found out that there was going to be a frickin' origin story for Batman for the 800th time, I especially just like didn't really care. You know, year zero... I had no interest, so I gave it up. I was sour, mind you, that I was sour on DC very much at the time just because of what they were doing with New 52, so that also contributed to me stopping reading it. But coming back into Rebirth, so far, Tom King has been my bag, and I think I'm just up to the War of Jokes and Riddles, and I know some people who really enjoy it, and I know some people who do not. I'm not even just talking about you, Donovan. Instead, I know that from my general, you know, group of people is that some people think it's one of the best Batman stories in the past 15 years, and some people think that it's just okay.
I loved it. I was big on Tom King. I mean, I thought he struggled with his first handful of issues.
Mm-hmm.
I personally did not. I mean, while I thought I can appreciate the story, I think it kind of, personally, I didn't like him retconning Bruce Wayne as a suicide survivor.
Mm-hmm.
That was not my jam, but, you know, after that, especially up around the Swamp Thing issue and, you know, that area, it was very good. I'm a big fan of what Tom King can do, but, you know, my issue is 100% DC management at this point with DC Comics.
Yeah. Well, I know that...
To be fair to DC, they're not Marvel with 10 different miniseries searching for Wolverine who will never appear in them.
So, I've been avoiding a lot of Marvel lately. I need to finish Dan Slott's Spider-Man because it has been basically the one series I've been following other than Ms. Marvel out of their bank. I will be coming back for Fantastic Four because it's Slott. I have the first issue of Nick Spencer's Amazing Spider-Man run, so I gotta read that once I'm caught up with the rest of my Spider-Man. And I know I'm interested in Iron Man and at least 2 or 3 other of the series. Definitely the Captain America stuff that Ta-Nehisi Coates is coming out with. I'm definitely need to read because Coates is very much in my wheelhouse. And Black Bolt I need to catch up on. Exiles I've been liking so far. They're mixed stuff, but
So you're naming quite a lot of things. I mean, the thing is like both those publishers, they publish 90 books a month or something. Right?
Exactly.
And I count myself as liking a publisher if I like 15 or 20 of their books, and that's like, you know, if I like 20% of their output, you know, then they're good for me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, DC sinking to Marvel's level is not a defense for DC.
Definitely.
It's like, just like DC is just like becoming bad. Okay,
Sinking to
It's like,
Marvel's level.
it's not an in DC's defense. At least they're not doing this squirrely shit that Marvel does. It's like, well, no, now they are. They are doing this squirrely shit that Marvel does to pick the pockets of their fans, and it's not. It shows that they used to have a certain amount of integrity in my mind, and they just lost it.
Well, let's sing their praises potentially a little bit. That we're getting the Three Jokers series coming out with Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok.
I could care less than zero on that.
I like Fabok, but putting it in the DC Black Label thing is like, hey, guess what, guys? Those are all premiere format issues, so they're not going to be $3.99, $2.99, $5.99 for a hardback, or not hardback, but square back spine each issue. So you're going to get maybe 32 pages, 25 if you're lucky. Jason Fabok art for twice the price, and because it's Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok and Three Jokers, everybody's automatically going to buy it. I smelled the raw. As soon as they announced that part of DC Black Label, I was like, hey, wait, what a great way to charge us twice the price for an issue you knew you were going to sell like gangbusters anyway.
Yeah, agreed.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
100% agreed. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wait for the freaking for the trade, and I'm going to wait for a sale on Comixology, and I'm going to buy that shit. That's what I'm going to do. Because I know it's coming. Like even if I got to wait a couple of months, eventually there's going to be some sale of some sort, or I'll get it from my library. Like there's so many other ways of reading it at this point for me that I don't have to pay their entry fee.
I think that's wise, Ian, and that's kind of like the way I'm going with DC in general at this point. Is I stopped ordering DC on my monthly order entirely. Yeah, and I'll just, there are plenty of con sales and dollar bin. It's like a lot of this stuff ends up in dollar bins.
Oh, definitely.
I tell you.
Yeah.
It's just like they order this stuff crazy. And, the other thing will be is if it's like really popular and it really does end up being really well regarded, then I'd rather almost have a nice hardcover on it anyway,
Yeah.
That ultimately is going to cost less than what you would have paid on an issue by issue basis.
Yeah.
For a nicer package.
I'm a continuity nerd / time travel / multiverse type of guy. So this is right up my alley. Like I want to know how the hell they're going to actually work this and say how three of them have existed throughout this current iteration of the DC universe. I'm very intrigued on that, but I can also wait.
Do you know? Have you been hot on the metal stuff?
Metal
Snyder's Justice League.
I'm behind on that too, man. To be honest, but I did enjoy the event of Metal. Yes, that I enjoyed a lot.
I need to reread Metal because I didn't quite understand it. But Snyder's Justice League it's like reading Morrison's. I don't know. Morrison's Justice League in a bad way.
Oh,
in a bad way.
Yeah. See. Thank you for burying the lead there because I was about to go. Oh! It's like Morrison's Justice League. Great. Oh,
well, it's like Grant Morrison's Justice League if you were to do it today, and it's all about the music crap. That kind of like weird concept stuff. Like I'm enjoying it. I really enjoy Jorge Jimenez on art. Jim Chung popped in for the first issue. Thanks, Jim Chung. Go back to covers. Jorge Jimenez is the real star of that book. I'm sorry. And but yeah, I don't know. I have to reread it. It's hard to follow issue to issue, I think.
Well, I will definitely.
And Snyder used to be one of those guys that you could follow issue to issue. I don't know.
Yeah. I forget, is Capullo on art with that, or is that Coipel?
On what?
Justice League?
Yeah, Justice League, yeah.
Neither.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim Chung did issue 1 in the covers.
Oh, Jim Chung, that's what
for a cover for issue 1.
Got it.
And then he did a pretty good job, but it's still Jim Chung. Like, so everybody's got a square face.
For you DC fans, I mean, what do you guys think about the creative revolving door at DC on artists? I mean, it drives me nuts that you can't have an artist on a book for more than like 3 issues in a row.
Bendis' Action Comics, every single fucking issue. It was like Arthur, not Arthur. It was
Yeah, Man of Steel.
Man of Steel. That was
Man of Steel is what I meant. Yeah,
they did it weekly, and there's no way that anyone could do every issue.
Right.
But just their normal bi-weekly books. I mean, you can't have artists can't draw 2 books a month, so it's like you get 2 or 3 issues from somebody, and then it switches. And they're not even curating it like Marvel did with like with Daredevil, where you'd kind of switch between Sam Nee and Marcos Martin, and some of these guys who had like a very complementary art style. It just seems like DC isn't caring that much about that. And it's just like you get these random artists every few issues that don't really, in my mind, mesh too well together.
I don't know. I think on Hal Jordan and the Green Lanterns, since the book launched, I don't know, maybe less so right now, but Rafa Sandoval has been killing it on that book, and he's been rotating with everybody's favorite Indiegogo Cyberpunk curator, Ethan Van Sciver.
Yes.
But I mean, their art styles do clash. But Rafa Sandoval, I think, has been on that book from the get-go, rotating with him. So I think he's done a great job. The Green Lanterns book with Simon Baz and Jessica has been pretty consistent on art. Robson Roca did a whole bunch of that before Dan Jurgens just took over the book. I thought that was pretty strong. I haven't seen many that were like glaringly obvious.
Yeah,
I enjoyed both the Green Lanterns ones.
Jurgens Superman had some pretty consistent art, even if it was different artists. It was still mainly the same basic style from issue to issue for the most part.
Like the Bogdanovic guy jumped on for the Reborn arc for like 4 issues for the Mr. Oz stuff.
It's gotten better is what you guys, because I came on after Rebirth for a while, and I came back off again like fairly quickly.
Fair enough.
I think Batman is the biggest. The Tom King Batman title is the biggest criminal one of that, of the art styles not matching each other. I think every other book has done a pretty good job.
I think that I personally would be happier if DC were to remember what they did during 52 a little bit more and get artists that have the complementary styles, that even if you're going to rush these issues, because a lot of these issues were double monthly shipping, and you can only keep that up so far with the artists. Just at least, going with what Bob said, like have artists that play off of each other really well, to the point where when you're reading it even as a collection, you're barely even noticing that there's been a shift. And yes, I know that each artist is going to have their own individual style. I'm not saying don't have that. I'm just saying hire some artists that are at least complementary. Maybe they have gotten their feet under them. I mean, I remember back at the beginning of Rebirth, some of the things that stick in my mind was there are some issues, and I'll use your Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps as an example. I think the 3rd issue of one of those artists' runs, before it switched to another artist, that 3rd issue had like 4 different artists on it.
Yeah.
The first artist couldn't get his shit together to get the 3rd issue out, and they just brought a bunch of random dudes in to, help get that issue out the door. And it just, if you can't, why do you have to put those things out twice a month if you can't get your production lined up to be able to produce the things? I mean, I know why, because you want to make just a lot of money off of it from the fans, but I just as soon get once a month $3.99 book, and now you're getting twice a month $3.99 books because the holding line at $2.99 went out the window recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Now you're paying $8 a month for these bi-weekly books, but they're
the bi-weekly books are the ones from Rebirth that I bought only because they were $2.99 and they were bi-weekly, so I knew that I was going to get something sooner rather than later. And the Detective Comics run by James Tynion IV was fantastic, bringing Azrael back. Love that. The Green Lantern books were really good for a long time, both of them. What else was I picking up? The Superman and Action Comics were both really good. Recommend those. But the Flash was the only other standout to me of those bi-monthly books. I thought that what's his name? Josh Williamson's writing Flash still for 50 plus issues. Really, really strong. I think this is going to be, this is better than. I haven't read the entire John's run, but this is going to, I think, come up as the next big run that people are going to talk about on Flash. Like they talk Wade, they talk Johns, they're going to talk Williamson when this is done.
Well, I'm personally very happy to see who's back in the Flash books, and I mean I know that it might be a spoiler to some, but not to others. They did bring Impulse back into the title. Yes, he's de-aged, but that does make sense with the the 7 years of missing time from DC. So he's first showing up now as opposed to already being an established character. But yeah, Bart's back, and I want to see what they're going to do with the character, whether or not they're going to use him in Teen Titans or hell, if they bring Connor Kent back, if they bring Con-El back at some point, then I'm a 100% happy camper. But I know I can't win.
Well, they've got to, because Tim still remembers him.
Right, but
Titans tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah,
and where's Cassie at this point?
Cassie's somewhere. I don't think she's really been seen since their New 52 Teen Titans stuff, so I have no idea where she's hanging out.
And who among us has read that?
Yeah, exactly, right? God, that Red Robin outfit was horrible.
Yep. Bunker.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm not sure where she is right now.
Before we move off of like DC, if that's where we're going, do you guys know about Sanctuary?
No.
It's it's the big like DC event they're doing, and it's Tom King.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this thing. Okay. You mean the crisis the crisis level thing?
Sounds like Vanishing Point.
Heroes in Crisis. Actually, I think that was. Oh, that's a Crisis of Time. It was 0 Hour. So at Comic-Con, the press were invited for like a breakfast press event on a yacht behind the convention. And it was pretty cool. Like I went and they gave us like DC robes and stuff, and they fed us like fruit, and like it's kind of this kind of sort of spa thing, and everyone was dressed in white. Like Tom King was dressed in white. He kind of sat at the front like he was Gandhi, and Clay Mann and his inker who just won an Eisner. I forgot the guy's name. It's like Mitch something. But they had like these like eyes wide shut masks. They were flanking his two sides, and it was an interesting setup. Where it was all about, this is a story kind of about like dealing with like mental and emotional trauma, and he talked about his time in the CIA and kind of his personal things and what kind of fuels this story about how I guess apparently some an untold story was this Trinity had made this sort of like superhero sort of rejuvenation spa that gets attacked by villains. And that's the story behind it. I really didn't hear too much about it until that press room or the press event.
Mm-hmm.
It was all over the news sites. I heard about it about a month ago.
Yeah, I think I've seen the artwork, but like
they had the whole premise of it and everything. I mean, I didn't see anything about it at con, but it's been going on. It's secret. People aren't supposed to know about it.
Yeah,
they don't keep any records. So someone can go there and no one's going to know that they went there for their mental trauma. But now, guess what? Somebody's getting a hold of it.
I'm not so salty, but I mean, they're going to be killing off like a dozen heroes that I'm not happy about. I don't know who, but
you're killing a dozen.
Did you make the little air quote signs with your fingers when you said killing off?
My mind did. DC did put out a thing online where it was like, which one of these heroes will die. So you just kind of rolled your eyes at that. But I mean, I don't know. It was interesting because I think Tom King and Scott Snyder are similar in a lot of ways. I feel that he kind of has this sort of, at least in the way he speaks about it, a real kind of emotional earnestness, even if the stories kind of come off not quite hitting the mark. But he said that this thing it's not going to be like a world-ending thing. It's going to be kind of more of a personal, I guess, identity crisis kind of thing. And because of the very bizarre, kinky setup they had to kind of promote it, it was something that I'm keeping my eye on. But like, events are, I think it's rare for an event to be actually great. As opposed, like I was never going to read DC Metal because it was just too strange. But like, the premise is interesting. I think. Even if it is kind of like Untold's this, and characters die that, but I thought the premise was at least curious, I suppose.
I think it'll be the #1 book the month that it comes out.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially if it has the crisis level vibe that I think it's going to.
It's got the Trinity involved. Tom King's writing. They got top artists. You know, it's intriguing. I mean, they're gonna sell the hell out of it.
Yeah,
they know how to sell. No one ever.
Will you be reading,
not
Bob?
knowing how to sell to their audience.
Yeah,
I'm not buying it.
Yeah, you sound like you're very hands off from a distance.
I'm not their audience anymore. I mean, I look at it as they are writing stuff that is not for me. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing that they're not writing stuff that appeals to me.
What was your jumping off point?
Batman 50.
Really?
Yeah. That was the last. I totally closed the door on making any purchases from DC on my DCBS order when I read the end of Batman 50.
Wow. Yeah, that's.
So you were the one that made him get a bodyguard by sending him death threats.
No.
No.
I don't begrudge Tom King at all.
Yeah.
To me, it's not the creators at all. My issue is
it's the higher ups.
100%
Yeah.
DC management.
Yeah. Yep. Which, mind you, I've been saying that on this show for years now. I've never exactly been the biggest Dan DiDio fan, to say the least.
No.
And now we're at an impasse where Jeff Johns is no longer day-to-day on the comics side either, even though he's more involved as a writer. But, I knew that was coming just because he's a creative man at heart. He was never going to be at that position for forever. And now Jim Lee is basically taking over his day-to-day work as well. And that could be a good thing, or it could be a not-so-good thing. We're going to have to wait and see.
I think they do a lot of good stuff. I mean, it's just, to me, I get to a point where, and this has happened over the years, right? I mean, I've been reading comics for longer than any of you guys have been alive. And just it cycles with the big companies that at a certain point I've just had enough of their bullshit.
Sure.
And I have to step away from them for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here.
Just kind of refresh it. And I've done it with DC before. I've done it with Marvel before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just I'm at a point where it's like, if I just stop reading DC for 2 or 3 years, maybe I can come back with a fresh feeling.
That was me with New 52. Absolutely.
That was me with Spider-Man. Yeah.
It's just I had that same thing with Spider-Man when the Clone Saga came out in the 90s. I had the same thing again when Straczynski had his thing where, Gwen Stacy had been banging Norman Osborn and had a couple of illegitimate, cryogenic kids or some nonsense. And Peter Parker had weird spines coming out of his arms. And
I want to thank you. I want to thank you for reminding me. I want to thank you for reminding me that existed, Bob, because I
sorry about that.
God, that era was bad.
But, and then I come back a few years later and it's like I enjoy it again. So,
sure.
It's one of the, and I think for right now, DC has a lot of great stuff on television, and I can get my DC fix. I watch The Flash, and I watch Legends of Tomorrow and Arrow and stuff. And it's I enjoy that stuff. I can kind of understand why a lot of TV fans don't feel the need to read a comic book,
Yeah.
So I get my fix from that. I don't really need to pick up the books.
Yep, basically.
Yeah, we on the show that I did, we had an episode about kind of like the whole fandom, the fandom entitlement as a topic discussion, because with the whole Star Wars backlash continuing, and one of the things I kind of reached conclusion was that it is a cycle. It is a time where we're going to like something, then we're going to have to step away, like Ian did with the New 52, and when you did with the Clone Saga, the DC movies were bad, then Wonder Woman was pretty good, and Aquaman and Shazam was pretty good. It is going to be kind of an ebb and flow thing. And I think you reach a certain age in the game where you realize it's not like it's over and done with. It's just a cycle of maybe some other time.
I think what it is if once you read these things for a certain period of time, you start, at least for me, I start seeing, I have too much inside baseball kind of, knowledge of some of this stuff. I start seeing the man behind the curtain, and it gets on my nerves. And then the other thing is, it's like you just see the repeated tropes, and it's just, they're not fresh anymore. Whereas I don't have a problem with them, because for someone who's new to reading this stuff, this is all exciting and cool. It's just like they haven't seen the same thing 6 times already. So it's still a fresh story. The craft is there. I mean, DC has a tremendous amount of talented writers and artists working there, and they're putting out a lot of really good material. It's just, it doesn't necessarily rock my world, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. I at least I hope, and I try really hard to not say that something I don't like is bad. I just try to say it's just not something that's my cup of tea right now. But I try to recognize that there's a certain amount of artistic craft that went into its production, whether I liked it or not.
Oh, always, yeah. And I mean, same thing with, like, even when I do step away from a publisher, there's always, I'd say, maybe 2 or 3 books that I still keep track of, because there's always going to be at least something from a publisher that catches my eye or catches my interest, even if I get pissed off. And that's kind of part of being a comics reader, is that you just need to just read and buy what you enjoy and what you like, because there's everybody's got busy lives. There's no reason to read stuff you're not enjoying. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever to buy it for the sake of buying it. I'm past that part in my life. I mean, I've gone almost entirely digital to avoid that. And, even when I do buy stuff digitally, it's stuff that I actually really want to read, because I'm still spending my money on it. And it's that simple. Or Brent's spending his money on it. I'm reading his books. So there you go. One way or the other.
Hurrah.
Hurrah. All right, let's try to wrap this up here. I think we're going to do Ant-Man and the Wasp in another episode, probably with Brandon on it, just because we're running a little low on time here, and we've had a very good conversation about everything else on this episode, and I really don't want to rush that movie one way or the other, so no big deal on waiting for that. I actually am kind of curious if you guys bought anything while you were at the con, just because swag is indeed part of the deal. I know, Bob, you were probably on the floor more than Donovan was, but what'd you come home with?
I actually didn't spend that much time on the floor this time. I did go to there was a dinner with Joe Jusko on Friday, hosted by IDW at Brazilian steakhouse called Fogo de Chao, and as part of that, we got a limited edition of Joe's Marvel Masterpieces hardcover.
Oh, wow.
That just came out, so like they only made like 28 of the edition that we got, and it's got like this gold stamp inside, and Joe inscribed it. And then he also did an 11x17 commission for us, full ink commission. Mine, I got Doctor Strange. It's got a really cool kind of Ditko-y background on it.
Very nice.
And, that was my major purchase of the con. Beyond that, I got like a Judge Dredd badge that one of the booths was selling that was pretty cool, kind of half size, but it's pretty big. And I got, some trades of some of the British comics that we were talking about. I picked up some kind of just things from indie creators and stuff like that. And I didn't really do a lot of hardcore back issue buying because it was quite expensive for the Joe Jusko thing. So it just kind of, that was my major purchase for the con.
Very cool. Very cool. Donovan, what about you?
I got, did you guys know about that Kickstarter comic Bingo Love? It was it was a comic about these like two women who fell in love. These 2 black women who fell in love in the 60s, and throughout their life, kind of getting apart and get back together. Like, I got that at the Image booth for $10. And I read it. Yeah, I was glad I got it because I was on a budget this year. And I read it on the plane trip home. It's fine. I was actually I thought it could have been better. I got Batman Earth 1 because I thought I had it, but I guess I didn't. I also got the Flash Companion from Tomorrow's, which is really cool. I like Tomorrow. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tomorrow's stuff.
They had a good sale. Was that on sale, or was that one of the regular ones?
It was on sale. I mean, because especially I got it on Sunday. I forget what I got it for. But I already have like the Batcave Companion, like the Titans Companion, and some of their Modern Masters stuff. So I was flipping through it, and it gets into like the original, when Iris was killed and the trial of Barry Allen and all kind of stuff. So I want to check this shit out. So I got that and a copy of I think they have the Creators magazine about the ghosts of Bob Kane.
Yeah, at their booth, just to interject there, I actually did pick up. They had a hardcover of the definitive Will Eisner and a spotlight on Don Heck. That
cool.
were both hardcovers that I think were originally like $40 or $50. They had on sale for $10 a piece. So I grabbed those on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I love their stuff. Just all the comic history stuff is great. I wish I had more money to get more like logo shirts because I love those. But once you see enough anime shirts by the hentai booth, you've seen them all. So I kind of ran out of ones to get. That may have been it. I think. I think that was it. I did not have $750,000 to buy Sensational Comics #1 or anything like that.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I was not at the con, obviously, but I did make one comic book purchase recently for the Amazon Prime Day. The one deal that I went with is that you could save $5 on a book purchase of $20 or more, and I had about $13 worth of a gift card left as well. So I went ahead and bought myself the last volume of the Invincible Ultimate Collection, Volume 12. So I now have a full collection of 1 to 12 of Invincible on my shelf. And I got to finish Volume 11, and I'll go ahead and tackle Volume 12 and be sad that it's over. But also...
That was a great series.
Yeah. One of my favorites of all time. Definitely. Invincible is very high up there on the chart for me. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the Amazon series is going to be like. I'm glad that they're going animated for that.
Oh, I didn't hear that they were doing that. That's cool.
Yep. Yeah, it's Kirkman's going to write the pilot. And I believe from there, it's going to be others involved with it for the most part, with him doing creative consulting on the project. But yeah.
I wonder how violent that's... I mean, because there are some pretty violent issues.
I know.
Yeah.
Invincible.
Absolutely. I think the entire reason that they're doing animated is so that they can get the large scope and feel of the comic right, while at the same time also being as violent and obscene as the comic can be at times, and not have to worry about that in with real actors. So yeah, we'll see how it turns out.
I'll be curious how you like the... I mean, I was really happy with the way Kirkman ended it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be curious to see how another Invincible fan like yourself likes when you get to the end.
I'm sure I'm going to. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. I from where they've been heading. I'm I think 6 issues into Volume 11 right now. Where they've been heading, it seems like they're actually heading to a conclusion that I would be thrilled with. So here's hoping. I'm going to cross my fingers because I've been burned before on endings of books that I've really enjoyed until the end. But I have more faith in Kirkman about that than I do with some others. So
yeah,
we shall see. All right, guys. I think that's just about it. Bob, where can people find you on the internet these days?
Mostly Comic Spectrum. So www.comicspectrum.com, all one word, or on Facebook. I'm also Comic Spectrum. And I tend to, probably on Facebook, Comic Spectrum, I'm a little more interactive. have been slacking off, and I need to get back on writing reviews and putting more content up on the website. But Facebook, you can find me there.
Very cool. And Donovan, where can they find you?
QNoAnswers.com, where I do my podcast Questions We Don't Have Answers. As advertised, I'm also can make contribute content on the BatmanUniverse.net. And you can also find me on Twitter.
Very cool. What's your Twitter handle again?
Oh yeah, Dono DMG1.
Nice. And Casina, give him the BK's Bullets YouTube and whatnot. What have you been up to lately?
Traveling and doing BK's Bullets videos and doing videos for my buddy Jim's channel on video games.
Nice. What's the latest video game one you guys did?
Well, I got a PS4, so I was playing through the Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, and then I played God of War 3 Remastered. So
nice.
So as far as I got.
Very cool. I actually was recently, probably right around the time this episode's coming out, I was recently on the Watchmen Minute podcast. So if anybody wants to check me out, I am minutes 116 through 118. They basically go through the Watchmen movie minute by minute and give it a nice breakdown as the movie goes forward. You can find that over at watchmanminute.libsyn.com, and it's also all over the place in other places. And I wanted to send out my congratulations to Leroy, friend of the show, aka Ziggo, on his recent nuptials. He got married this past weekend in a Doctor Who themed wedding, and it looked adorable, and everything went well for him there. So much congratulations to Ziggo, and here's to many years of happiness on his end.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
Yes, indeed. All right, guys. I think that's just about it. Bob, thanks for joining us, man, and hope to have you back on sooner than later.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, guys. It was good to have I kind of miss podcasting right now and again. I don't miss the weekly grind that I did for a really long time, but I do like chatting on the topic. So
well, we'll definitely keep that in mind for the future. And Donovan, good to have you on again.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always fun.
All right, no problem. And Brent, good night.
If you ever do an Image or indie themed one.
Oh, we'll definitely keep you informed. Yeah, definitely.
I read more I read about 110 comics a month, and like 25 of those are Marvel and DC.
Nice.
You kind of see the breakdown there.
Oh yeah, no.
Please tell me you read Savage Dragon.
I do not.
Oh.
I don't need to read, like, if I'm going to read a superhero book, I'll read a Marvel book pretty much, except with the exception of Invincible, and now it's over.
All right. And the email address, as a reminder, is comictiming@gmail.com, and you can find us over at facebook.com/comictiming. I'm at I_M_sci-fi on Twitter and Instagram, and Piha-DS9 on Tumblr as well. And we're proud members of the Comics Podcast Network over at comicspodcast.com and the League of Comic Book Podcasts over at comicbooknoise.com/league. So for Brent and for Donovan and for Bob and for me, this is Steve Levinson reminding everybody out there that there's always time for comics.
Hashtag fuck Batman.
Fuck Batman.
Is it Vitrol or Vitrell?
Bob Braytall.
Braytall, 0-2. Okie dokie.
You better get it right. He's in the Guinness Book of Records, motherfucker.
That's true. And
you could kill me without blinking.
Yeah, and he was a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So I mean, he's He's lived. He's lived a very interesting life, man.
Oh.
I remember. Yeah, he has a cover photo, I think, on Facebook.
Yep.
Is that more recently than the Guinness stuff?
I don't know if it's more recently, but it's definitely around the same time. I mean, I remember when I had dinner with him when he was in town. It was because he was on his way to the taping of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in Connecticut, and that was like maybe 3 years ago, I think.
Oh, Bob, I'm pretty sure I'm like associated with you, familiar with you on Facebook, but it's good to hear from you.
Yeah.
All right.
You told him to bow down to your Guinness World Record.
Bow I did.
I'm gonna go hit the hay, guys. Bob, yet again, thanks for joining us, man. We'll have to have you on again soon.
Yeah, it's I always feel bad for you East Coast guys. It's like it's 12:30 there. It's like only it's 9:30 in the evening here, so I still can go watch some TV or read something.
Yes, indeed. Yep.